I would be honored. Our Heavenly Father, we come before you today, Lord, with open hearts and open ears, and hopefully to hear, eyes to see, Lord. We hope that you would help everyone present to take home, to hear and to take home the things that would help them with their families, with their operations, and to give you greater glory here on earth, Lord. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Steve Campbell. Okay, you probably all got a message. This meeting's being recorded, and we just to let you know, it will go out to the public. Your comments might go viral here if you make some profound comments. So this is a participatory, it's a meeting where we participate, and we invite you to participate at the level that you can. Jump in on the chat, connect with each other. I'm going to make sure here in a minute that the chat is allowed to be able to connect with each other, not just with the hosts. Because I want you, we're not sitting down in a room. We're not on Wally's farm. We're not visiting Steve Campbell in Idaho. We're not in Williams' greenhouse, but we can gather here and we can make connections. And that's as well as learning. That would be definitely a very close secondary goal. So yesterday we typed in what we learned. I want you to think about your notes. You're ready to share something. And if you have an epiphany from yesterday, something that you would like to share with the rest of the class, would you go ahead and raise your hand? If not, you'll get voluntold. So think about it for a minute, and then let's see. Raise your virtual hand, and we'll unmute you in. We'd love to hear some nuggets of wisdom that you gained from the class yesterday. Oh boy. Okay, I might just have to go right down this list and find somebody who looks like they're wise and pick them. I'm not seeing any virtual hands. What about you? Oh, Ben, unmute. We get to hear from Ben again.
Yeah, well, I guess the end of the meeting yesterday, just learning about the email list, and that's, how big of a thing in marketing that is. And I'd never really thought about it. Maybe even looking back and maybe thinking I've been duped by some people that have been doing that I didn't realize that's what they were doing, but not really duped. I mean, I know there's a lot of people on here that do it, but Kit Farrow's one of them. I'm starting to realize what he does works well, and that's kind of what they're saying to do. So
yeah, find somebody that's successful doing what you want to do, and follow them. Yep, very much so. That's we'll talk about that in a minute. That's very much why I reached out to Wally years ago. Anybody else have something that they're dying to share? And feel free to type it in the chat too if there's something that was an aha that you feel like would contribute. Lindsay, please go ahead and unmute and let's hear your nugget of wisdom.
Well, I guess there are a couple things. I'm 69 years old, just turned 69 years old the other day, and my dream for this ranch has increased exponentially over the last 2 days. And I learned things that maybe I need to unlearn some of the things I've learned since I was a child growing up on the ranch, 4-H and through all those years of the purebred cattle business. But as the family dispersed the herd 20 years ago, and I'm just back on the ranch now at 69, it's probably time to do something with the knowledge that we're learning here. And so I thank everybody that's here. And
I'm on a Zoom meeting. I'll call you back as soon as I get off.
That's great. Is there something in particular, Lindsay, that you feel like is very applicable, something that you can change today, tomorrow, this week? Oh, you're muted again.
As I look toward perhaps restocking, I question if I should restock or just continue to have people bring cattle in, because as I told you yesterday, we had 48 inches of snow over the last 3 weeks. And if I'm going to get rid of my hay, I don't think I could feed my cattle. So
Yeah.
perhaps I should go to a seasonal ranch operation thought rather than year-round cow-calf.
Yeah, well, Wally's message is going to be perfect. You'll be able to know whether you should own those cattle, custom graze those cattle, what's going to work, best, and then overlay that with what your vision is, what you want to do, and what your skill set is, and your team. And so that is very good. Thank you, Ben and Lindsay, for sharing. Thank you for those who typed in the chat. We hope that you've taken some good notes. Here's just a reminder of our rules. We're in school gets rules. Now this is for everybody's benefit and for us to be able to really grasp the concepts and respect the speaker. So be present, try to limit distractions, turn off your notifications. They say that when we stop and when we pause to look at a text message, it distracts our mind for 3 minutes. That's why texting or 3 seconds, sorry, sometimes 3 minutes, 3 seconds turns into 3 minutes, but those 3 seconds, a lot can happen in 3 seconds. You might miss that little nugget that you needed just to transform your business in those 3 seconds. So be present, be respectful of each other in our classroom and give 100%. And I know as presenters, we're committed to giving 100% here today. So with that, I'm going to stop my screen share. And Wally, you're versed in this. We'll go ahead and let you share your screen while I give you an introduction. Wally Olson is the man who I consider to know the most about Bud Williams marketing, with maybe the exception of Eunice that lives on the earth today. He's also a great stockman. He's somebody who I reached out to years ago when I wanted to, I'd learned from Gerald Fry at a short 2-hour presentation, and I started Googling back when the internet was fairly new. And I found out that Gerald Fry was going to be speaking in Vinita, Oklahoma. I called the number that I found, and Wally Olson answered the phone, and he said, "Hey, if you want to learn more, come out to the ranch." And so my brother-in-law and I got a plane ticket, and we flew to Tulsa, and we drove over to Vinita, and we learned from Gerald Fry, and we got to meet Wally Olson. We've continued to nurture the relationship. I asked Wally to be my mentor. I don't know if he even remembers this or knows this, but because he was doing things that I wanted to do. He was a good stockman, and he was very good at marketing. One of the very first things that he asked me to do was read a book, and that book was The 1 Minute Manager. Good mentors push you to learn and expand your knowledge, your noggin, your head. And so it was a privilege to be able to work with Wally in that capacity, and then be able to mutually attend marketing schools with him, with Bud Williams, and go to at least one of the Bud summits. So thank you, Wally, for paying the price to become an expert in your field and your craft, and for being willing to share that. He teaches marketing schools. I encourage you to look him up on the internet. He'll share his contact information during the presentation. So with that, let's hear from Wally Olson.
Very good. Thank you, Jared. Can everybody see my screen, since I don't trust technology?
Looks good.
Very good. Here we go and stuff. So one thing I've been very blessed with, Jared was talking about mentors and all that. I have been very blessed in my life to have some people that took a lot of time to put up with me and that I learned from. And one of them was Bud Williams and Eunice, and oh man, what I learned from him. And another one, gentleman, is Walt Davis, and Alan Crockett, I think's on here. I've learned gobs from him, and Campbell and I, we are just in the infancy of great breakthroughs, whatever that means. So very good. Let's get started. And anytime that there's a question, please ask it, and let's attack it then. Here's a disclaimer because that's just what you need in this world anymore, I guess. And my work is to help people deal with what happens today and to prepare for the future. Ranching is a business with risk. The information, advice, and recommendations that I make in my communications are intended to be educational, informative, thought-provoking, helpful to all who read and hear what I present. Obviously, my advice and recommendations are not guaranteed. So, this comes from Bud Williams, and we should realize how good things are, work to fix the things we don't like, quit complaining and be happy, and then really smile and mean it. And this is the greatest thing I learned from Bud Williams is just, you got a problem, you fix it and you go forward. So, and learning and using good stockmanship will probably return you more profit for time invested than anything except for good marketing. And what I hope to show you through this is that good marketing can really make your operation a lot larger without any capital investment or scaling it bigger, or it's just manipulating your inventory value, selling what's overvalued, keeping what's undervalued, and just going down the road. And the one thing you need to learn is to deal with today. And this is probably one of the best things I learned from Bud is I only deal with today. And matter of fact, you get down to you deal with the moment. If you're working livestock, you're dealing with the moment. And don't worry about, learn from yesterday, prepare for tomorrow, but, just deal with today. And you need to understand how to control fear and greed. And I'll give you an example. In 2014, there was a lot of greed in the cattle market. And in 2015 and 16, there was a lot of fear. And, that's just the way it goes. And you can take care of relieving you of those worries. And stay calm and make any sell buy with math and not emotion. That's all I want to, you just completely throw the emotion out and we just do the math and go from there. Proper math will help you, more than emotion, what happened in the past and what the experts say will happen in the future. I wish that people that predict the markets would have to go back and be graded on how well they did, because I don't know if you guys were around in the cow business in 2015 and 16, but by golly, it was, the way the cattle business goes, it takes so long to build a herd up that, we had years of good markets ahead of us. And then Shazam 16 came along and away it went. So, and you need to understand in the market, it takes very little lack of supply to really shoot it up. And it takes very little of oversupply to bring it down hard. And you need to be aware of that. This is a slide that John Haskell, the rancher, I did, and the mentality and the psychology. We need to think about our business in matters, and we need to start separating production and market. We need to really be focused on marketing. Everybody is focused on production. I mean, the regenerative agriculture is, on production. You've got to figure out how you're going to market that production. And words influence thoughts. So, you should reflect on the value that we produce. And most of our fears and worries are completely unwarranted. So, and what we're going to be talking about today is price really doesn't matter. It's the relationships of the market that what matters, and the relationships looking forward. And we're terrible about looking back at relationships that you cannot do anything about. As soon as you bought an animal, it doesn't matter what you paid for it. It's done. So you need to be looking forward at relationships. And then the relationships between the different classes of animals which you own, and then the relationships of the costs that you have to incur to change the classes of animals that you have. Is there any questions at this point?
Nothing in the chat yet, Wally.
Very good. Well, we'll
Go on.
A wrong decision can be fixed. The decision that's not made can't be fixed. And, you just need to make decisions. Like Bud just drilled into you. You want to do something, well, just start, because then you can manage. And until you start, you can't manage. I promise you that, they talk about paper trading in the futures market to learn how to do it. Well, I promise you, everyone on this presentation, we could get rich paper trading in the futures market. But I promise you, as soon as you put your money in the market and you apply emotion, then you're going to have trouble. We've always done it that way is a really good way to fail. That's from Dave Ramsey. You need to be, change over. I came through the ag crisis of the 80s, and what that was is that was a changeover from very low cost of production, and basically whatever you produced, you made money on, and then we really escalated the price of costs, and it really got tough. And you sell to generate cash flow, to buy, to generate profit. The only reason you sell something is you know that you have something in inventory that's going to go up in value, or you can buy something. And cash flow is the king of this business. We sell inventory to generate cash flow. We buy back to stay in business or to profit. And profit is sales proceeds minus replacement, and you got to get back to whole and stuff. So if you sell an 800-pound steer and buy a 300-pound steer back, you have to have the money in there to take that 300-pounders to 800 pounds. And so you just need to be aware of that. And you can run a long time on cash flow without profit, and profit is only when your net worth goes up. And I seriously doubt if you were seriously in the cow business in 2014, that if you've gotten back to profitability yet. Now, you probably had excellent cash flow, you're still in the business, but I seriously doubt if your net worth as much as you were then. Value creation and capture. That's what we're doing here. Is we sell. What we sell should capture the value we created, and the value is subject, to opinions and highly individualized. And settlement prices is where the buyer and the seller meet, and the market determines the price. And our job is to produce a value for others and a margin. Customer value is indicated by price, and the market should influence what we choose to sell, and market should influence what we choose to produce. And successful businesses is a resource inventory allocation problem. And the inventory square, we worked with the inventory triangle of feed, money, and livestock. But time is very important. And you know, if you always want to, you know, Bud always talked about always have money in grass and then worry about the livestock. And you also have a certain amount of time, and you need to, time is, to me, is becoming more and more critical to understand and how to use. And all four are essential and must be maintained. Running out of money and feed will end in disaster. Running out of time limits our options and increases our expenses. And running out of livestock limits our profit potential. You know, the livestock business can produce higher profits than just the feed sales and investing returns. And you know, there is lots of custom grazers that do very well because it's a very low overhead and stuff business. But if you want to really create wealth, you know, you need to learn how to handle and profit from livestock. And the way you do that is you sell the overvalued and buy the undervalued. And one of the greatest advantages I have, I wish I could find a better slide, but the paradigm that the cattle business doesn't, you know, or even agriculture can't be profitable. And I do not know of any business that can be, you could be more profitable than agriculture. It's just we need to manage it correctly. And paradigms are our belief systems, what we operate under. And, you know, when you change one paradigm, you create another. You know, there is no out of the box thinkers. When somebody, you know, talks about being out of the box thinker, people talk about me being an out of the box thinker. I'm in just different boxes than the other people because it's our belief system, how it operates. We leave one box and you enter another one. And understand, this has helped me more than anything I think in my life. Understand that everyone is absolutely right in their box, in their belief system. You know, they are correct. And so it's up to you on what boxes you're going to be in. And here's two of the paradigms that I think in the cow-calf business that is just devastates us is cow longevity and big calves. You know, it takes 6 to 7 years to pay for a cow, and she isn't profitable till she's 8. And if anybody out there can show me the numbers, I truly, really would appreciate seeing the numbers on if this statement is true. And then big calves bring more money, and we will look at that. So, to me, if you're in the cow-calf business, you need to understand your inventory value. The banks, you know, when you do fill out a financial statement at a bank, you just have cows, and cows have a huge difference in value, and so you need to break it down or slice it down to where you know where it's going on. And so this is an example. My brother-in-law that ranched at Council Grove, Kansas, managed a ranch up there, and he retired. And then a year later, the ranch sold. The people that bought the ranch did not want to buy the cows. And so they sold all the cows in Junction City, Kansas in January of 2018. And so let's just go through what the inventory value was then. And so they sold some 550-pound replacement heifers that brought $814. They also sold bred heifers that brought $1,775. So in this trade, or however you look at it, relationship, there was $961 of increased or appreciation in value over the heifer calf. And so what you need to decide here is, can you do it for that? And I hope you can. And then in the 2-year-old cow, you know, she went up in value a little bit, and she also gave you a a calf coupon or a dividend, however you want to look at it. And then you go along, and the 3-year-old cow, she did not go up in value, she did not drop in value, and she gave you a coupon. The 4-year-old cow went up $8 in value, and she gave you a coupon. When you got to the 5-year-old cows, they were $122 less than the cow or the 4-year-old cow. So in other words, you dropped your inventory value dropped $122. So in other words, the calf that sold only was really worth, she sold for $850, but the worth because of the loss in value was $728, or that was a drop of 14% in value. And in other words, that's the same as losing 14% of your calves. And if you lost 14% of your calves, I promise, most people would be doing anything at all to figure that problem out. But since this is not measured, nobody writes checks for it, you don't realize that it's going on. And as you work your way down through here, it just keeps going down, 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 and if you have $600 in cost to run a cow, these cows you get down in here are questionable. And on the inventory value, this is graphing it out. And here's the weaned heifer calf. Here's the bred heifer. There's the appreciation. And then we bump along up here and we do not lose any value, and they're kicking out calves. In the 5-year-old, we're dropping down some, and and then we just tail off. And right here to me is why the cow-calf business is break even, because we let all of this appreciation get away from us and we did not cover that cost. And this is what it looks like graphed out on calf value. Here's the $850 calf. That's what they all sold for. But this is the value that calf gave you after covering depreciation, or this is how much money you lost in inventory value. Is there any questions to this point?
Wally, the
Yes.
last slide, you had years of age across the bottom of it.
Correct.
Okay, showing there at 4 or 5 after that was when you lost the value.
That's when it starts, really dropping off. That's when depreciation really starts to eat away at your calf value, or however you want to look at it and stuff.
Another question. It's not a dumb question, Justin. It's a really good question because I don't think ranchers understand it. Why does a cow depreciate, Wally?
Why does she? Because of her productive life is factored into the market of her value. Because over here, like right now, a cull cow is selling for basically 70 cents, and there's some and it's factored into the years of productive life left in that calf, is why she depreciates. Did that help you out?
That answer your question, Justin?
We will.
Jared, if I might say it a different way, you had that cow that was worth $1,500. And every year after 6 that you kept a hold of her, or after 5, I guess, in this example, she went down in value. She depreciated in value because she was expected to have fewer and fewer and fewer calves out into the future.
Yeah, I think that's a Good one.
Very
Zach,
good.
Wally, one more question here. Zach
Yes.
asked the question, do you think this would be the same for grass-fed cattle, like selling to the consumer, or could you get away with older cattle? We might need a little bit of clarification there, Zach, but
When you are in the grass-fed beef business and you're selling all of your whole animals for, in the beef, no, there isn't any depreciation there. Because you're selling her for full value. Then what happens is the secret to the grass-fed beef business is turnover. If you're a womb to the tomb grass-fed beef person, so if you're producing your calves, you got the cow herd producing your calves, and you're carrying them forward, to slaughter. Your cash flow is, and your turnover is just terrible. And if you look at most people in the grass-fed beef business, they have cut that time frame down. So, on the turnover. And to me, if you're in the grass-fed beef business, one of the greatest things you could do is breed all your heifers, calve them once, and then get them fat and slaughter them then, because they will be giving you the calf income, to help defray the cost of developing her. Just something to think about.
yeah, and then just to follow up one there. So Justin asked, should you be selling her after 5 when she starts to depreciate?
Yes, and what you need to do is you need to sell her when she has the most value that you can generate out of her. And just hold on that, and we will get further into it down the road.
Yeah, there's kind of a follow-up question from Shiloh also, but I think we'll just hang on to that and we'll cover that cow depreciation, because you said she doesn't make money till she turns 8.
Yep. So, okay, well, this is the way I look at this here is if you compare the 4-year-old cow to the 8-year-old cow, and the sell price is $853 versus $1,366. And the heifer calf cost you $814. So when you've replaced your inventory, you understand what I'm saying? You have $1,039 in cash left over by selling the 4-year-old cow. Selling the 8-year-old cow, you only have $552 of cash left over. And if it costs you $500 to make this heifer calf into a bred heifer, now you have $539 of cash left to pay for this heifer. And on the 8-year-old cow side, you only have $52. So when you compare that, you take $814 plus $500 is $1,314 that you have in that bred heifer. By selling and using the cash generated by selling the 4-year-old cow, it takes 2.4 years to pay for a heifer, versus if you compare it to the cash left over on an 8-year-old cow, it's 25 years. So, that is a tremendous difference in there. And now let's talk about cow size and big calves. And this is a chart by Chip Hines or Kit Farrow. I stole it from one of them, but it's to me, it's very good. It shows you that you can run a lot more 1,000-pound cows to a 1,400-pound cow. And so, and this is a value of gain. And what I'm talking about, the value of gain, is if you compare 350-pound calf to a 400-pound calf, it's giving you $72 to put that 50 pounds on. or it's $1.40 something, and I cannot read that. But it's $1.40 something, which is a very, that is a very good return, in my opinion. I mean, if you can continue to march up, the next one is the next 50 pounds, it pays you $66 or $1.32. Well, if it's costing you $1 to put it on, you're making 32 cents profit. And the 500 pounds is about the same. But when you go to the 50, is now this market is telling you, we absolutely don't want those calves, and we're going to pay you $39 less for a 550-pound calf than an 875-pound calf. And you go on down here and you bring back a little bit, but if you go clear down to 700 pounds, you are still behind the 500-pound calf. Does everybody grasp what I said there? You just need to be aware of that in your marketing. And somebody said, well, you picked this out. So let's go to this next slide. This was Okla's Nebraska sale on December the 5th. And let's just work through this, if I can, just so you understand, because it's important to understand this. So if you take, what we're going to do is we're going to take the 300-pound calf at $278, and that value is $861. And you come down here to this 400-pound calf at $272 is $1,088. And so you come up here and you compare the value there, that is $227. So what that's telling you, the market is telling you that we're willing to pay you $227 to put 100 pounds on that calf, or they're paying you $2.27 for every pound you put on the calf, which is quite good and value again to me. And the reason somebody says, well, why is that? One thing is everybody knows that 300-pound calves die, and just on and on and on and on and on. It's just the way the market operates and functions. And so we come down here, the 500-pounder is $1,200. And so that's $112 value again. And the 600-pounder is $1,278. So now the market's saying, I'll only pay you 78 cents. And what's happening here is Jared talked about stockmanship and stuff. It takes more skill to take care of these littler cattle and stuff than as they get bigger and weaned and everything. And everybody can, you've got the skill game and the gain, just putting on weight gain, and everybody can do that. I mean, it's, you just got to feed them. So, and on the 700-pounders, it was $1,351. And so that's 73 cents. So you see that, it holds true in this time of year, people are willing to pay for, more for lighter calves. So what you need to be aware of is granted, these did bring more money, but it costs, if it costs you $1 a pound to put it on, you're losing, it's costing you $25 more or so here to put it on. And where, to me, is if you're in the cow calf business, what you need to do is have your cow-calf business designed to produce a 450 to 500 pound calf easily. And then if the market's telling you to put more weight on, then you just put more weight on. But don't try to produce these big calves out there, because what you do there is you're starting to get out, you know, you're calving earlier. You know, I'm a Facebook stalker, and I love, we've just started in showing pictures of calves and snow and calf sleds and calving barns, and there's ads for night calvers, and it just goes on and on and on. And you know, it's just, and you very seldom get paid for it. And if you compare it, this last week in Oklahoma, between 350 and 400 pound calves, they paid $1.63, and between 450 and 550, they only paid you $38. So it just goes on and stuff. And so when you compare the cow size chart with the market chart that we used, there is, you know, $26,000 difference in the value there and stuff. And one thing I really want to point out to you, that if you start using this marketing, you can create more than profit. You can start creating wealth. And you know, my unfair advantage that I learned from Bud is, you know, we can be very profitable in the livestock business. Like he said, there's not a business out there that's more screwed up than the beef business. So there's more opportunity there. And I have been blessed to be able to take advantage of it. So this is an example. Is there any questions before we move on to this? Is there any questions about value of gain and stuff?
Joe asked a question here. If you can get to 400 to 450 pounds in 150 days, should you wean early to sell them?
You need to look at the market. I mean, you know, what you need to, you know, like I said, you need to look at what the market is telling you to do there.
Yeah, so it's kind of a year by year.
It's a day by day. I mean,
yeah,
you know, you cannot. But what I'm trying to point out here is produce the easiest, cheapest calf possible, and then go forward from that.
And Justin asks, when you say, quote, good choice steers, what does that mean? When I think of choice, I think of meat quality grades. So
if you go to USDA feeder cattle specifications, and it will tell you what that is. That's just the very best cattle. Good and choice number ones is what these were. And it is just you know, the feeder cattle grades is what it is.
Perfect. That's all the questions. That's good. Thanks.
You bet. Okay, let's move on to appreciation and depreciation. And I want everybody to be thinking about wealth building. You know, where are we giving, you know, not capturing the wealth that we build up? And let's go forward. If you have not been to a ranching for profit school and you're going to ranch, this is the first thing you need to do tomorrow morning, is to sign up for a class. And I have been to 5 ranching for profit schools, because you can you know, you can attend for a very reasonable rate. The people that I meet there, I have got great friends. That's where I met Jared Sorensen, I believe. maybe not, I don't know, but I've met lots of people there, lots of good people. And I have got a network that goes from, coast to coast and border to border. And somebody said, I'm in theory retired now. And somebody said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm just going to go around, and I love visiting ranches and seeing how people do things. And I'm just going to go visit ranches and stuff. But let's go through this, because I went out to, or I did their executive link meetings and one time, and I was in Boise, Idaho, and a gentleman was there and said, I will not be here tomorrow to listen to you. So, and I said, well, let's just work through your ranch right now. And so this is what we did. These are the values that he felt at that time their cattle were worth, and so we had a heifer calf up to a yearling heifer, you had $375 of increased value. From a yearling heifer to a bred heifer was another $550. And then, 3 to 5 year old cows, between 3 and 5 and 6 and 7, you dropped $400, and then 6 to 7 down to old cows, you dropped $680. So let's go through and just modify his marketing some. So let's assume, and this gentleman said he ran 1,000 cows, replace 20% of the cows every year. And so this is keeping and making bred heifers, overselling heifer calves. So you would pick up $185,000 of appreciation here. And there's cash flow implications here, but you are picking up a vast amount of balance sheet or picking up value there. And in other words, you picked up $925 a head in value here, which is, to me is just, phenomenal. Now, granted, you need to understand cash flow and everything. And everybody says, well, if you do this, you're going to wreck your cash flow. Well, no, you're not, because what you're going to do is you're going to come over here on the other side and you're going to mitigate the depreciation of these old cows, and you're going to sell these cows when they're full valued. So in other words, you're going to have $216,000 more value there, and you need to be aware of that. And so you do not hurt your cash flow when you do this. And also there's many tax implication here. And a lot of people talk about, you don't want to manage taxes and this. Well, we have done so many stupid things in managing taxes that I will agree with you, but you can do very good things about managing taxes. And in other words, if you sell, these cows here, you can sell them for capital gains, which is at a lower rate, probably usually half the rate. And also you don't have to pay self-employment tax, which is 15% if you're self-employed. And all of a sudden now we're creating wealth. And you got to decide whether you're going to manage your retirement or the government is. And you just need to be aware of that. So the total difference is $401 a head on 1,000 head ranch. That is, to me, a phenomenal amount. And we did not increase, we didn't go borrow money and double the size of the herd. We did not go buy another ranch. We did not go buy a bunch of machinery. We just did good marketing.
So I guess maybe just to bring this home a little bit, back to the first day, you're familiar with Whitby and Watby.
Yes.
Where does marketing fit in?
I would say that, that is working on the business. Now you got to go out when you have the plan and work in the business of getting them ready to sell, But
yeah, if you're looking, like Alan and I said, look, the Whatby could be $50,000 an hour decisions. And so this really brings it home how it very absolutely can be.
yes, no, it's just, to me, it's just phenomenal, what you can do. And well, like I said, let's just work through, and at the end, we will have a great discussion. So now we need to get down to tactics, and it's asset management, and you need to be aware of what you have in inventory, all the ages of your cows and the sex, cows and bulls and steers and reproductive status and condition, and understand the cost to move from different, to move, cows up in age, and preg check them from exposed. There's just many things you can add value that don't cost a huge amount of money. This is an interesting slide. This is Wallace Olson's ranching, and to give you the history. And I worked for the Kelly Ranch from I worked for them for 30 years. And in 2008, the family decided that they wanted to get out of active ranching. And since it's a family thing and you cannot get consensus usually, we sold half the ranch, kept half the ranch, and they were nice enough to lease it to me till 2016. And this is the performance of my cow calf enterprises, and this is the sales. And what's interesting is, in 2008, I, had 27% of my sales came from calves and 72% came from cows. And it just worked along there. I do not know, I think in this time frame right here, I sold all of my cows because there was more opportunity in the stocker business. And then coming over here in 2012, or the fall of 11, I bought lots of, we call them wet bag cows out of the drought in Texas. And there was some cows on there that were more valuable to be sold. So I didn't sell very many calves, and I sold lots of cows that year. And then the cows that I kept this year, I sold calves and I kept the cows. And in 2014, when they got really overvalued, I sold more cows and more cows. And then in 2016, when I was leaving the ranch, I sold the rest of my cow herd except for like 40 cows. And in 2017, I had made some bred heifers and some stuff, so the cow sales stayed high. And in 2018, I sold those cows out. And this is just, it's very interesting to me, the difference in sales. And if you come down here to 2021 and 22, a drought is going on, and so I have sold a number of cows, but they have been sold for they were sold for cull cows and not full valued reproductive cows. Just because, like right here, these cows here sold for $2,900, and these cows here sold for $2,200 and stuff. So you need to just be aware of that. But it's very important to know where your sales are coming from. And you need to understand the intrinsic value of a cow. And what that is just what the cow is worth if you were to take her home or take her to the sale and just sell her for killer price. And then you figure in the value of a 500-pound calf, and you take off the what it costs you to make a calf into 500 pounds, or a year. I use $45. So in other words, the value of a cow is $1,360 using these numbers. And so there's a number of cows in Oklahoma that are very good cows that are selling under that because of the drought. If you go up north, there is very few cows that are selling for that. And another way to look at this is, let me just show you, is when you're dealing with cows, you have to come up with value to you or value to me, because if this cow was 7 years old, she doesn't have much more value than that to me. But if she 3-year-old bred for her second calf, she has a lot more value to you, to me. And so the way you decide that is since you have to deal with today, you just take the value of a young bred cow. What's a young bred cow selling for today? And it was, at this time, it was $2,200. And you come down through here, and the calf was worth $1,000. And so this is 3,200. And you subtract the $540, and you come down here, and that is $2,660. So, that shows you that you could pay quite a bit of money for a young bred female. What you need to be careful of, and like Jim Gary wrote in one of his articles in Stockman Grass Farmer, it's all right to buy expensive cows. You just need to make sure you sell expensive cows. And so, because if you were to stick to just this, you would miss out on some great opportunities, in my opinion. Anybody have any question on the intrinsic cow value? If not, we'll just keep on going.
Roll.
Yes.
Nope, I said roll with it. So we probably, where are you at in your presentation? Like time 10 to 15 minutes, does that work?
What's that?
If we try to wrap up, including Q&A in 10 to 15 minutes?
Yeah, then hang on, because we're going to go.
We're going to go. Okay. Michelle, did you want to jump on and ask a question?
If I could, I'm sort of traditional, so I'm not completely getting everything that Wally's saying. But what I'm wondering is, when you're figuring out the values of the cows and you're talking about how they go down with age and depreciation, isn't that kind of excluding that as a cow, like a 2-year-old that has a calf, you have more chances of having challenges with them losing the calf, those types of expenses. Whereas a proven cow that's 5 or 6 years old with a good nature, and hopefully you've used Steve's qualities and have a good animal, I'm just not sure about the losing as much value as he's talking about, if I'm making any sense.
Yes, you are. And
Yep.
and one thing is to me, we need to completely rethink the cow business, and rather than worry about cow longevity, we need to be concerned with and getting breed up on young cows, or from first calf heifers to second calf heifers, figure out how to get the breed up there. And we do not need to be using bulls with huge growth EPDs and milk EPDs. What we need to be looking at is just making a very functional, thrifty cow, you know, that can rebreed and go from there and get away from the challenges that we've, you know, there's another paradigm of the cow business, other challenges of the cow business.
Thanks,
Like I
Michelle.
said, I will challenge you on about everything. So very good. Well, if I only got a few minutes left, we need to go. Okay, you need to understand what it costs you. You just need to understand your costs and what it costs to move from one, you know, a heifer calf to a bred heifer and on and on and on. And, you know, if you got a heifer calf and some money, you got a yearling heifer, turn the bull out, you got a bred heifer, some feed, you got a producing cow, and you just work down through it. And then you can sell the calf and keep the cow, and you have another calf, or you can sell the cow and keep the calf if it works out. And one thing you got to understand, if you're in the cow calf business, you are buying calves every year. And the reason I say that is it's your cost of production. That is what you are paying for calves. And working through this is a cow bell curve, and this is an example of what it looks like of my brother-in-law's cow herd there. And in other words, there's $1,039 of appreciation from heifer calf to bred cow, and $1,133 of depreciation going down the other side. And so needless to say, there's a huge amount of difference. And if you look here, these numbers down here are pretty close together. So in other words, here is where we give up all the profitability of our cow herd. Now we're going to move on through this. And you need to understand the difference between marketing and selling. This is comparing Springfield livestock market. And on Saturday, they have a special cow sale, and this is what the cows sold for. And on Monday, they have the regular cow sale, and these cows are comparable, and they're basically 400 to, you know, 500 less. And then in your inventory, you have inventory. And you need to understand that most of your inventory is from 1 to 5 years old, and you need to understand how to manage the fallout because there's just not that much going on over here. And the way you manage your fallout is put pressure on the heifers you're going to breed. Let the bull decide which ones are heifer calves. And if she's an open heifer, you can grass fed, you know, you can grass fat, you know, make her into a grass fed animal, or you can put her in a feedlot, or you can rebreed her. And 3- and 4-year-old cows, you can still make good beef out of them and rebreed them. And you just make sure you sell your 5-year-old cows. And if you pay attention to anything else in this slide or this presentation, this is it. This is another brother-in-law of mine, and he finally accepted to speed up his turnover of his cow herd. And he did it. And if you look here, he ran 250 cows and 550 or 555 weaned heifers. Over here, he's running, 221 cows and 110 weaned heifers. His average value, this is something that really intrigues me. The average value of animal sold was $823 here, and it is $1,200 and I can't read it because it's covered up, but $1,200 there. So in other words, change your net worth by 6%, and you change your sales by 44%. So if you want to create wealth, and like I said, I used to talk about being profitable. Now I'm more interested in being wealth, creating wealth than just profit. And how to manage through a downturn, you need to understand the relationships, and you need to be looking forward at those relationships and not back. And this is what I did in 2014. I sold the cows and they had month-old calves on them, and they averaged $2,900. There's cows that sold for $3,500, and there's cows that sold for right at $2,000. But we kept a heifer calf and made her into a bred heifer. So after doing that, we have a bred heifer. We've maintained our inventory, and we have $1,335 in cash. We did it again. I didn't do as good a job of marketing, but we still kept the bred heifer, and we still picked up cash. And this right here is the most important thing, is that looking forward at relationships. You would look here, this year I sold bred heifers. I was leaving the ranch for only $40 more than I had in them. And most people would just say, by God, I ain't going to sell them for that. But if you looked forward at the relationship, I'm buying back the heifer calf for a lot less. So it's still a good trade. I have a bred heifer, and I've picked up another $550 in cash. So in other words, when it's all said and done, I have a bred heifer that still would sell for $1,500 plus quite a bit of cash. And they said, yeah, but you gave up all those expensive calves. And if you work through this, I gave up 2 expensive calves, and then it got pretty cheap. You subtract the cost to carry, you got $2,255. You go over here on the $2,900 cow, and by locking up, you ended up being completely out of the cow business and down $90. And just think if you would have bought the $3,500 young black cows that were there. And so in other words, there was a $4,115 difference in doing this. And that all there was there is marketing. How much time do I have left?
Yeah, we should probably roll into question and answers here pretty quick. And then also want to be sure that we share how to get a hold of you. And Steve brought out a good point, when your next school is and how they get enrolled.
Just go to Olson Ranch LLC. And all the information's there. The next school is the end of January. It starts on the 31st of January, and it goes the 31st through the 3rd of February. And I give a money back guarantee. If you're not completely happy, I'll give you your tuition back. The only thing I ask is you tell me why you're not happy. So go ahead, let's have questions.
Pretty good deal. So one question, can you dive a little bit deeper into profit versus wealth? Because I remember Bud Williams says we don't go broke because of a change in our balance sheet. We go broke because we run out of cash. And I think all of us have been there.
Well,
when cash is short, we have a big balance sheet, but we can't pay ourselves, or we can't pay our propane bill because we got to tell our employees, hey, hold on, don't cash that check till the end of the week.
yes. Well, one thing what you need to do is look at the structure of your ranch and see, to me, well, I will give you a quick example. I have a very good friend. He may have died by now, but he's Monroe Miller. He's an Amishman from Mount Hope, Ohio. And then we were talking about transition, and when they transition over, you buy the milk cows first, because that's your cash flow. And then you buy the horses, and then you buy the machinery, and the last thing you buy is the land. Whereas the way we do stuff is you go buy land and a whole bunch of stuff that you don't really need. and then you expect cows to pay for it. And what you need to do is to be in the cow business, all you have to own is a cow.
Mhm.
You don't need to own any of the rest of the stuff. You can find people that run cows for you, and being in the cow business is very profitable. Being in the ranching business, depending on how it's structured, is not very profitable. And we're looking at, one of the reasons why in 2014 there wasn't a bigger shakeout in the ranching business with a drop in the value of livestock is because the land had went up so much that the bankers just, took on more land. What's going to be real interesting is when land goes down, and it may never go down. I've been saying it's going to go down for 30 years and it hasn't, but we'll see. Any other questions? I see Campbell's got his hand up.
Yeah, let's take that one. Then we got another one.
Well, Wally, I guess this is, for me, it's kind of a little bit of a recap. You mentioned you want to, on your trading cattle, you put that money right back in, and you were trading, the gain all went back into the trade. And when you took money out, it was capital gains on the sale of cows.
Yes.
So you were in a different tax bracket. That was huge for me. You want to be selling what other people are going to be paying you the most pounds to produce.
Yes.
You did say it, but young cattle, it's a real skill set to keep small cattle alive. You need to get good at that.
Yep.
And yeah, people are willing to pay more for that 5-year-old cow because all the problems are behind her, and I will shut up.
Yep. And one thing, if you're starting out, you understand what I'm saying? What you need to start out is, you start out with the littlest heifer calf you can handle and just grow her along, or you start out with a depreciated older cow that's going to give you full valued calves and not lose any value because she's already depreciated out. I don't mind running older cows. I just don't want to take the depreciation on them.
Yeah. So something that question that comes up often, what about people that are in the seed stock business, those that are striving to have a closed herd? They've got genetics that they worked on forever. And there's a lot of value there to them about, the cow that's been raised on their ranch and their environment, that epigenetics that Steve talked about. Can you speak to that just a little bit, how we factor those values in? They're maybe somewhat subjective.
Okay, here is on epigenetics. If the heifer calf is born on the ranch, you understand what I'm saying? She follows her mother around, you breed her, and she raises a calf on the ranch. And then she has another calf. Well, she has got, 90% of the epigenetics? To me, a 3 or 4 year old cow should know just about as much about a ranch as a 5 to 11-year-old cow. And that's just my humble opinion. And as far as longevity, well, I think if you have to, when you get to understanding depreciation, basically all I want my cows to get to is 5. What I'm trying to get through to people, besides understanding how to grow wealth, is understand that we need to be focused on getting those young cows bred cheaply. You understand what I'm saying? Get your genetics right there so they rebreed rather than so they breed when they're 15 years old.
Yeah.
As far as I have heard it over and over again, well, this 10-year-old cow had an $8,000 bull. Well, yes, she did. But 4 and 5-year-old cows can have $10,000 bulls. You do not, I just do not accept the longevity and all this stuff, And if you want to get your genetics through a drought and stuff, collect embryos and put them in the jug, just like I grew up with Tim Oldie from Oldie Angus, and You know, one time is it Blazon, I think it's the bull that he had great success with. You know, one time I was talking to him about that. Like Tim said, well, I got 5 more of them in the jug, you know, so.
Yeah. Good. Well, maybe the last thing, Wally, if you'd be willing to, you spent years working alongside Bud and consulting with him. Would you be willing to maybe share maybe a favorite story that you have of Bud Williams and the influence he had on your life?
Well, but you know, marketing and marketing and stockmanship is really big in Bud Williams, you know, from Bud Williams. But I spent weekends with him, and what I learned more from Bud than anything else is how to live, you know, how to deal with stuff, you know, and just like I'll give you an example. Right now, I don't know if the House has elected a speaker yet or not, and everybody's going into tirades about that. But you know, there's nothing I can do about that, so I am not going to dwell on it. You know, I imagine the sun will come up tomorrow morning, and you know, life will go on. I am going to deal with the stuff that I can deal with, and go from there. And that's the biggest thing from Bud is just, you know, be happy, you know, and you know, just do the math, you know, don't get all this other stuff, you know, to cloud, you know, you need to be profitable and just focus on profit. I don't care what color of cows it is, you know. So there, you know, I got a good friend, Hoss Hopping, and he says, you know, he doesn't care about kind or color. The only thing he's interested in is green cows, ones that are making money, you know.
Yep. Well, that's great, Wally. Let's see. So again, the school, the end of January, you've got other ones on your schedule for the year?
I do not at this time.
Okay, but likely we'll have some. Is there the price of your school? Do you offer family discounts of multiple people for families?
Nope. It's $1,000 period.
$1,000 period. You do there is something on there about young people coming, and
yep.
I know
if you got somebody that's absolutely interested under 18 years old, they can come for free.
Yeah, way to honor the way that Bud treated that as well. I think that's great.
And if you are and then you can repeat it for $100, because you're not going to, as you've seen today, you're not going to grasp this in one setting. And so I offer it again for $100. And to be right honest with you, the reason I charge $1,000 is to sort through people. And I have yet to have any really bad people show up at my schools and stuff. The people that come are really interested in, you know, learning.
Yep. Well, I haven't attended one of your schools, but I can attest and give my testimony that Wally's the real deal. He knows it's not just conceptual with him. Yeah, Steve is right. It is worth the admission. It's worth, honestly, 10 times the admission. It's a $10,000 school, really, offered for $1,000 because Wally wants to help other people. And I appreciate his mission of carrying on Bud's legacy, both from stockmanship and marketing. Any final words you'd like to share with this group of people, international group of people, Wally?
Well, the big thing is, you know, as I went to a Presbyterian church, and the benediction is, you know, the preacher always say, you know, head up, eyes open, you know, and you know, just you know, I don't know if it's don't take yourself too seriously, but just understand it, just work through it, and you know, understand that, you know, how you structure your business is very critical. And you know, you may have to start over. In the 1980s, Wallace Olson had to start over because his business in the 70s was not structured for the 80s. I can tell you that, and stuff.
Yeah. Well, I wish we had 2 days to continue to listen from you, Wally. I know you didn't make it through everything that you wanted to share. But I encourage you to continue to reach out. There's also the maybe last thing, just talk about the ranching.fyi and subscription service, how you can tap into continuing learning there.
What that is, ranching.fyi, just Google it, and what it is a subscription website we're just gathering up. There's John Haskell and Cinnamon Lynn Hart and I, and we just are gathering up information that is, to me, is relevant. I mean, I'm not interested in the latest implants. What I'm interested in is creating, sustainability, or I shouldn't even say sustainability. I hate that word. Regenerative agriculture, building it better, getting better, and stuff. So, that's what it's about. And
Well,
if
thank
anyone has any questions on this, please have them get a hold of me.
Yeah. Yep. So you got your website address. I will share your contact information. People have asked for your slides. I've told them reach out to you directly, and I will also, if you're okay emailing them to me, I'll send it out in an email to everybody that's signed up.
Sure, I'll do that. I will send them to you as soon as we are done.
Perfect, Wally. Well, thank you so much. You're welcome to stick around. If you got to jump off, I completely understand, but we're going to jump into some soil health next. So if you want to go ahead and stop screen share, and then William will get you keyed up and ready to go. Yes, please, big round of applause, virtual round of applause for Wally Olson. What an amazing man.
Like I said, anybody that please get a hold of me. I will gladly help you and stuff.
Yes. Yep, he will. That's his mission in life. So, well, awesome. We've got nearly 70 people on here. Some people this is their first day. Some people, this is their third day. Remember, we committed to play full out. We've got, we're gonna keep track of people that have their cameras on and interacting here, and reward those that are really staying to the end. So I want to share this link, see if that comes up in the chat. We did our best to make something available so you could get lifetime access. Right now in the emails that went out, or the email that went out this morning, you've got YouTube links to yesterday and today's videos. They're unlisted, so those are for you and your team, your family members. My goal is to make that in maybe more of a course format, polish it up, make it look a little bit nicer. And so that's what we're going to be working on. If you want lifetime access to that, this is the link to do that. Click on that. And since you guys are here and you're participating, here is a special offer. So when you go through that cart, which Selena, my wife, figured she knew how to do it all along. I just tried to get more complicated. And anyway, so that'll run you through the Ruby Mountain Foods, our grass-fed beef sales page. So it'll look a little different than the other things, but RubyMountainFeeds.com, well, just click on the link. It should work, because it's too much to try to share verbally. Regen, all capitals, 23, and that gets you the recordings for $27, which again, what you learned from Wally was worth $1,000. I said this was $1,000 summit, but absolutely, what you learned from Steve Campbell is worth that. And our next speaker, William DeMille. Bud Williams said, first and foremost, we are grass farmers. You can never have too much grass. You can never have too much money, but you can have too many cattle. So we want to learn how to grow more grass, and William's going to help us learn how to do that. In his presentation, he's going to focus on soil health. I've worked with William. He's been on the ranch for more than 2 years. We've known each other for more than a decade, and he has paid the price to really understand soil health and how natural systems work. And so what we're going to talk about today is how to be able to wean ourselves off of synthetics, how to focus on more biological systems, with the end result that will increase our production, we'll grow more biomass, because that is really the business that we are in. We are harvesting solar energy. And so William, let's run with it.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna take off. I have a pretty high-strung personality. If I was a cow breed, I'm probably a limousine. I'm just kind of out there. So what you need to do is tighten the cinch on your horse and keep up. This is going to be an overview of the major principles of how to create a functioning soil and then how to maintain that soil. I'm a teacher. I've started a school recently. These are some of my 2 students who graduated. I've had more students than this. These are the 2 that finished my course last year. I'm training new farmers because I believe that this world has a farmer shortage. Now, I don't want to plagiarize anything. So these are the people that I have learned from over the years. I've been studying this stuff for a long time. So here they are. If you want to learn what I know, learn from these people, or just come to my school. We're going to start with the conclusion. This way you can understand where we're going to. So by incorporating the principles of soil health, we will make a profit by saving money on agricultural inputs. This is not a theory. There are hundreds of producers who are doing this. This has already been tested. This actually works. So we just want to focus on actually doing that. Here's the contents of my presentation today. There's no way we could even comprehend a lot of these things in maybe a day of study. So like I said, this is going to be an overview of the things that we need to be understanding and doing. So I don't expect anybody to understand all of this all at once. Although I'm sure in this group, a lot of you already understand a lot of this, which is great. But I am bringing information from many different sources and many different worldviews. We put it together. And when we put it together, we find that the soil health works the very best. So we're going to be going through these. So there's part 1, which is understanding the fundamentals, and part 2, which is what we're actually going to do. And we'll go through each one of these here. The first thing is to understand what makes a functioning soil. So by understanding what makes it, then we can create it. If we don't know what makes a functioning soil, we can never build one. So all of the principles on our previous page that we just looked at, we need to apply all of those, but we need to understand the relationship between each one of them. So it can become a little bit complex, but don't get overwhelmed as you're starting to do this, because you can learn this in just a couple of months. So if you can see my cursor down here, this definition of a functioning soil, that means you don't have to add any fertilizers, pesticides, or herbicides, no man-made inputs to grow food. And that means grass for cattle, that means forages, that means vegetables. If you're having to add amendments, then your soil is not functioning as good as it could be. So the next thing is the opposite of what we just talked about, which is what destroys a functioning soil. So there's 3 major things that stop the soil from function. Tillage is a huge one. All the sides, that means to kill something. So herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, nemicides, all the things we use in agriculture, it's in opposition to making a functioning soil because it's actually killing all that stuff. So the compaction is probably our #1 problem to grow plants. And things like lime, gypsum, all the fertilizers that are in salt forms, those things are helping to compact the soil. And we know, over the years, we think we need these things to grow food, but not necessarily. Now, traffic is a big deal. Cattle can, compact soil. Machines compact soil. Walking just on one path, you compact soil to a point where the plants won't grow. But compaction does these 4 things on the bottom. it increases pests, disease, low plant vigor, and low plant yield. I want you to focus on the picture. This is me in the backhoe here, and this is me building a greenhouse to grow vegetables in. And this stone wall here, we built this out of boulders to go 10 feet tall, and I have a couple other pictures to show you of this. But imagine the compaction we are creating on this ground right here to bring in hundreds of boulders to build this, because this was 30 feet wide, it's 130 feet long. So we drove back and forth on this hundreds of times. And so that is not what you would do to your vegetable garden to get it ready to plant, but that's what we did to our greenhouse. And here the greenhouse is when we're finished. That's me standing there. And this is the first crop in this greenhouse. And this is growing on that compacted soil. And we're able to do this because we know what to do. And so these are the things we're talking about today of what to actually do. That moves us on to the next thing. We need to have a clear understanding of the 4 ecosystem processes. And of course, those are energy flow, the mineral cycle, water cycle, and ecological succession. Energy flow is the photons that we get from the sun that hits the leaf and creates food in the form of sugars. And then mineral cycle is when we take all the organisms in the good, healthy organisms that are in the soil, and they create the fertilizer for plants to grow. And then the water cycle is just the evaporation. We've got clouds, we've got precipitation, we've got snow and rain to water the plants. And then ecological succession is how we change the earth from bare rock. Think of the volcanoes in Hawaii, and then 100 years, 200 years later, you have jungle in Hawaii that used to be a volcano, because we're building topsoil and we're changing the plants that grow within those types of soils. We start out on the rock with mosses and lichens, and when we get to the late succession, now we have the old growth forests, so that succession changes. And then we get to the soil health principles. When I first heard about this, I heard Gabe Brown gave a talk, and there were 5 principles. And then a few years ago, they added in a 6th one. Well, in my school, I teach a 7th one, and I've put it in red there, and it's called mindfulness. And I've found that we really have to do this. This is about thinking. Mindfulness is being present in the moment. Because if you make a management decision on your farm based on what happened last year or 10 years ago, and it's emotional, and there are problems that you're dealing with, then you're not going to be making a good decision. And if you're making management decisions based on the future because you're worried about it and you don't know what's going to happen, those are bad decisions. Mindfulness is making decisions in the present based on the present. We have to be focused on what's happening right now. So we have to be looking, observing, understanding what's happening right now. And then, the other ones are right here. Context. Make sure that if you want to raise an apple orchard, you're not doing it on the top of Mount Everest or in the Antarctica. That would be out of context. So make sure that we're in context of what we're doing. Minimal tillage. That's so we're not killing the microbes, or because if we're doing that, we're going to have to be adding fertilizers. We want to keep the ground covered. Why? Because that feeds the microbes that are going to make our fertilizer. Diversity. That's the #1 thing for pest control and disease control. If you look at this picture in my greenhouse here, you can see I have all kinds of plants in here. I have about 7 plant families growing in here, and they're mixed up. I don't have big rows of monocrops. I'm mixing things up because that really helps with the disease and pest control. The living root in the soil, that also feeds the microbes in the soil. Now, they're not eating the root, but they're eating the sugar exudates that are coming out of the roots. And then 7 is animal impact. We need to be incorporating livestock, possibly even wild animals, into our agricultural ventures. If we're not, we are really missing out on awesome benefits that animal impact will be giving us. Okay, so excuse me, I've been fighting a cold, so if I start coughing, just ignore it. So the 4 key insights This comes from Alan Savory. And I put the picture of ecological succession here with this. They don't necessarily go together, but it's the perfect way to show how the 4 key insights work and what ecological succession actually is. So Alan Savory, he's probably one of the smartest ecological scientists alive today. And he found these 4 key insights, and when we understand this, the point of understanding these is so that we can make more plants grow. And it doesn't matter what plant we're growing. By understanding these insights, we will be growing more plants. Let me be more clear about that. I'm going to put my cursor here in the middle of this chart. So right in here is mid-succession. This is where row crops would naturally grow. Corn, beans, those grain crops, they're growing in this mid-succession naturally. So if you have natural soils that are right here, you won't be adding a lot of inputs to grow those. If you're growing some kind of a tree, a timber crop, if you're growing timber, you need this late succession over here on this side. If you're growing cabbages or broccoli, you need to be over here in the early succession. And so different plants respond differently. So let's just say that we are grazing grass. I know there's a lot of cattle people on here today. So one of our purposes is to grow a lot of grass. That's going to be mid-succession right in here, maybe a little bit over towards late, but we're still in mid-succession. And depending on the way we manage our herding, these 4 key principles, if we understand them wrong, in 10 years, we may be over here in early succession. We have created a desert where we can't grow grass anymore. So to be able to keep the grass growing, we need to understand those 4 key insights. And then we get to the 6 spheres of the soil. Again, I first learned this from Ray Archuleta, and he had 5 spheres of the soil, but in the last, very recently, in the last year or so, Ray has added the phylosphere to the 6 spheres of the soil, which is pretty great. And I put the mineral cycle with these 6 principles because it works nicely together to understand. So our phylosphere is going to be the leaves. We got this tree here in the picture, but any plant you're growing, it's the same with grass or anything else. The phylosphere is catching the sunlight, and it's putting the sugars down in the roots, which is number 5, which is the rhizosphere. Oh, excuse me, we're back. And then the porosphere are going to be the pores in the soil where the water can get in, and it's created because all of these organisms right here, they are creating number 3, which is the agronosphere, and that's when they pull all the aggregates together. They're pulling them together, and that gives you your soil structure. Now, the detritosphere, number 2, that's the dead, dying plant material on top. So that could be this log here. But I mean, in practical application, we don't really put logs on our field, but we do need a lot of the dead organic stuff on the field. And we're going to talk about that more. And then the drillosphere, that's the earthworms. Those are the holes that the earthworms are drilling in the soil. And then when it rains, massive amounts of water get down in there. And as the water flows through the soil, it's like a syringe. And as that water leaves, it pulls in massive amounts of air, and you get lots of oxygen in the soil. So these 6 spheres of the soil, fundamental to understand. There's 2 groups of these little guys that live in the soil. There's the big group called the macro, and the small group called the micro. And when I say big and small, I just mean the size. Macros you can see without a microscope. The micros you need a microscope. And I'm just going to run through these really quick and tell you what they eat because it's very important. Bacteria eat green plants. Fungus eats dead woody plants. Protozoa will eat the bacteria. And nematodes, they eat, and we're talking about beneficial nematodes here. All of these are beneficials. I'm not talking about the bad guys. But nematodes eat each other. they will eat protozoa, fungi, and bacteria. And then microarthropods, they will eat mostly fungus. And then you've got your macroarthropods, which just, those are your bugs and insects. You know, you go move over a rock, there's creepy crawlies going around. Those are your macros because you can see them. And then you got incatrades. Those are like a little tiny worm, very small. They're translucent. And then normal earthworms. And the macroarthropods, they are eating organic matter and they're eating all these microscopic guys above. And the incatrades and earthworms, they're digesting any of these things above that will fit in their mouth. Now, the reason this is important is because this is where your plant food comes from. The bacteria is going to release lots of nitrogen, and all of these other guys, by eating massive amounts of bacteria, they are going to be releasing other forms of nitrogen. So you're going to be having a lot of nitrate and a lot of ammonium in your soils. Okay, we need to understand a fundamental here. This one is a big one. And I don't hear a lot of scientists talking about this. So I always like to pause and make sure we have everybody's attention, because we need to understand the ecological purpose of certain things that we find in our environment. And I am teaching, and hopefully I'm right, but I'm teaching that the ecological purpose of pests and disease is, number one, they're decomposers. Number two, they are the cleanup crew of dying species. So if we can change our mindset from thinking that pests and disease are bad, there's something to fear, there's something to get rid of, there's something to spend money on eliminating, if we can change that mindset and understand that if we work with Mother Nature, we can save a lot of money on all those sprays, and we can adjust the ecological succession so that the bad pests, the diseases, the bad weeds go away. So a pest, I'm talking about insects. I'm also talking about plant species we don't want. So look at this picture right here. This is our class last summer. This is a perennial pepperweed. The local people hate this here in Northern Nevada. I don't know, they hate it. They hate it. They hate it. It's not toxic. It's not poison. The cattle will graze it at certain stages of growth. So it's not that bad of a weed, but people really don't like it. And I thought, well, let's do an experiment with my students this year, and let's see if we can change the ecological succession to kill this out. And my vegetables were growing beautiful, and we didn't pull the weeds so that we could see what would happen to the weeds. And you can see that this weed, because I'm pretty sure these are early succession plants, so we adjusted the soil to be a mid-succession soil where most of our vegetables would grow, but this weed is dying out. So this was phenomenal to see this in our tests. And now we just have to figure out how to do it on a large landscape, which I think we can do, but I just haven't done it yet. That leads us to the 7 layers of plants. Now, this is what the permaculture people teach. There's a lot of gardeners out there who are using permaculture. There's a lot of landscape designers using permaculture. But they have these 7 things they focus on. And I put the energy flow cycle here with this to try to help explain. But what we're talking about with the overstory and the understory are trees. So a landscape that has a lot of trees in it tends to have more fertility in the soil, and it produces more calories. If you look at the redwoods produce a lot of like calories per acre. They're not calories that translate into human food. So it's a weird way to say that, but that is how we measure how much production is being made in those areas. And when we put big trees and then small trees, so an understory tree would be like a fruit tree size, and then you have vines that are growing up the tree trunks, and then we add in a shrub layer of plants that are maybe 6 feet tall. Then you have a vegetative layer, which are shorter plants, and then ground covers. Those are things that don't get much over 6 to 8 inches tall. And then you have root layers. And I always try to focus on having fibrous roots and tap roots growing together. What this does for your energy flow cycle is it maximizes the photosynthesis. So you're getting the maximum amount of carbon into the soil. Now, this isn't necessarily something that's going to be, I mean, if you're raising corn, you're not going to be planting a bunch of trees out there. And that's not what I'm saying. I'm just showing you the science of how to make the most out of your soil. And we can incorporate a lot of these layers on a lot of our agricultural ventures. This takes us to what a keystone species is. And I just want to focus today that there are two major keystone species that are overlooked, and they're not talked about very often, but that is humans and beavers. Keystone species hold an environment together. And when you remove that environment, there's major things that collapse in that environment. Like 300 years ago, we had over 2% water. It was like almost 3% water in North America. Depends who you read on that number, but and so that is surface water, lakes, rivers, streams, ponds, and that highly affects the evaporation that goes into our local water cycles. And so those would be your summer rains that you're getting when we're not getting rain from the ocean that's covering the whole continent. And so by removing the beavers, and we've been effective at removing a lot of beavers over the last few hundred years. And so now our water is less than 1%, our surface water. And so to me, it's obvious that we need to be building more ponds. We need to try to create more surface water wherever makes sense, wherever we can. We need to have that, and it will help increase the rains. So here's the conclusion of the principles we just flew through. And so those are over here on the right side. So this is a recap on the right side, but let me just go to my conclusion on how to save money. When we can incorporate all 10 of these things that we just went through, we're going to be able to eliminate all of our fertilizer use, which is the biggest cost right now in agriculture, as far as my figures show. And we're not going to have any pH adjusting amendments. So no lime, no gypsum, no sulfur. We won't need those things. Not that those things are bad. It's just that they cost money. And so by building functioning soils, we don't need them anymore. And then no more sides. We won't need the sprays because we have learned how to eliminate the pests and the disease in ways that make more sense, especially financially. And then there's fewer passes with the tractor. There are some operations out there who, to get the crop in, they are doing like almost 10 passes a year with all the different sprays and all the different tillage passes. And that can get really expensive. I mean, fuel isn't expensive. It's not affordable nowadays. So, we can save a lot of money on fewer passes. Bioremediation, that is the idea of reclaiming polluted land. When we get the fungus living in the soil properly, it will capture toxins in the ground, including things like radioactivity. And so, but there's a lot of pollutants that could be in the ground, and we can use bioremediation to help clean that stuff up. And then, of course, if we're producing healthier food, people are willing to pay the producer more for that, and that's obviously a good thing. And resilient biology. I know we've talked about epigenetics quite a bit, and that's been talked a lot about in this conference, and that's just getting food to grow in extremes. So on the bottom here, how people fail. The reason people fail at this is they see me or dozens of other people, but they hear this and they thought, man, that sounds great. And then they convert to regenerative agriculture way too quickly. It often takes 3 to 5 years, maybe longer, depending on your situation, to implement all of these things so that you're actually building a functioning soil. So you need to focus on doing these things properly and actually understanding how they all work together. And that's the number one big problem. People, they convert too quickly. So at this point, this is where we need to be mindful. This is where we need to think. I loved it in one of the presentations a couple of days ago. I forgot who it was, but they said the rancher's job is to think. And this is where thinking comes in. If we're going to convert over, we have to think. We have to do this properly. So how do we actually implement these principles? So this is the part 2, and this will go pretty fast. But we're going to focus on these things here. So here we go. First of all, we really do have to know our context. What is our livestock? My wife's livestock are these puppies. She raises puppies. In fact, we had a pregnant puppy who gave birth last night. And so we have cute little puppies. If you need a puppy, let me know. Are you going to be raising peaches? That's going to be a very different context than raising lettuce. Are you raising cattle, sheep, horses? What is your context? You really need to know that, because that will make a huge difference on the management decisions of how you use all the principles that we just looked at. Start small and manageable. Here's a garden behind me. That's a small manageable garden size for anybody to start. What if you have 1,000 acres and you are trying to convert over to regenerative agriculture? Take 50 acres, take maybe 100 acres, whatever you think you can handle, and start playing with these ideas. Learn from the people who know what they're doing, who have already had success, but don't try to convert in 1 year. That is asking for disaster. Within a vegetable context, we've got to cover the ground. This is me in my greenhouse. I don't pull weeds very often. What I do is I let them grow. When a crop is done, I will cover the ground. That cardboard is feeding the fungus. For a grain context, you cover the ground with a roller crimper. You grow the cover crop and you cover the ground with this. So we're still covering the ground, but covering the ground is important. Focus on the details of that tractor. That's the front end of the tractor. There is a 3-point hitch on that tractor front so that it can plant and roll down in one pass, saving money. Back to the greenhouse. We're going to cover that cardboard with 12 inches of detritus. That just means a compost type material. Detritus means trash. So we cover that there, and then we plant our plants into it. You just plant them directly in there. And so that's how you do it with vegetables to make this work. In a grain context, we're growing the compost and then we are rolling it down. So we don't make compost. All we do is we roll it down. It's impractical, maybe impossible to make enough compost to spread over hundreds of acres, thousands of acres. So we just grow it in place. We roll or crimp it down. And then we take the corn planter behind and we plant that in. And you can grow a lot of different crops doing this. In the vegetable world, people are doing this with pumpkins and other types of vegetables. As soon as you get it planted, water it. You need to get those watered in. And then you need to fertilize. Every time you plant, they need a shot of fertilizer for 1 to 5 years. It's going to take some time. So don't forget that. In the vegetable context, we are adding about 1 inch of detritus on top of those beds. So in my greenhouse, I can grow anywhere from 3 to 4 crops a year on one garden bed. But I'm only adding 1 inch once a year. So I'm not adding between every crop. A person could do that, but I don't think we need to. Within a livestock context, the livestock are going to do kind of all of these things. And how can you use all of these principles with livestock? If you have livestock, this makes your job easier. It's easier to do these principles with livestock than without them. The livestock can plant your seed for you. If you add seed to your mineral and you keep up on that, your cows will eat that. A lot of that will pass through the digestive system and plant. There's people who've been doing that with success. You can inoculate your microbes out there because you have the livestock. The microbes are already in that system. Fertilizing. The urine of the cattle is one of the best fertilizers there is. And of course, detritus is the manure, and it's the hoof action of tromping down the forage that's left over, because you're not going to graze it all off. You're leaving some of it there. But if you're in an area where you have degraded land that's not growing feed anymore, and livestock is the #1 tool to bring that back, but you have to do that in proper management. Also, we need to be incorporating livestock into our systems of like our grain system and our vegetable systems. The soil becomes much better in those systems if we can get the cattle in there at least once a year as part of the rotation. So after we have done all of those things and we understand all of those things, the tools and tests and measuring is one place that I see people are lacking. People are not doing testing, and so they don't really know what's happening with their land. I often ask producers, what's going on, like 5 years ago, how did this look? And they don't know. Or more often and more dangerous is they think they know and they give me answers, and then we find a picture of their farm 5 years ago and it doesn't look the way they thought it did. And that's the way the human mind works. We need to be using these tools and tests to to measure if our soil is actually improving. So compost is one of the #1 tools for inoculant. Cattle are the #1 tool that I've found, but compost is almost as good. And now compost can be a lot of things. It can be detritus on top of the ground to feed fungus. It can be a mulch to hold in water. It can be a plant nutrient like a fertilizer, but that's not the tool of why we make compost. We make compost for the tool of an inoculant, and what you are inoculating. Now, inoculating means to introduce something. So we are inoculating or introducing that list of microbes you saw, the bacteria, fungus, protozoa, nematodes, all of those things. That's what we are putting on the land when we use compost as a tool. And then the tool of fertilizer, but we can be weaned off in some ground in gardening that I've used. We've done it in 1 year, and then the soil is working. In bigger agriculture, it usually takes more like 3 to 5 years. But just any type of fertilizer, whatever fertilizer you're using, start cutting back, but you need to do it in test plots. Don't go big, do it in test plots until you know what you're doing. And then the tools of observation, we've got to be looking, we've got to be thinking, we've got to be understanding what's happening today so that we can make decisions that are good. Because a lot of times we get in a mindset of what has happened in the last 5 years, especially if there was trauma involved. If we have trauma from, oh, we had this financial disaster 8 years ago, a lot of times we find that we still make decisions based on that. We can't do that. We have to make decisions based on right now. And then the tool of the camera, you can see me there with a camera in my hand. I'm taking pictures to see what the plants are doing. And then I will take that picture in the greenhouse probably 4 times a year, but outside once a year is probably good enough on farmland, on rangeland. This is one of the best tools on rangeland. After 5-6 years on rangeland for cattle, this is great because you have pictures and you can tell if you are growing more forage or less forage. But without the tools, you really don't remember. We simply don't remember. Landrace seed breeding. This basically is the idea of epigenetics at work. But what we do is we will plant our vegetables in our climate. We save the seed, we replant them every year. And we like to have a lot of genetics here. So we would have a lot of different varieties in this in this whole, like, I guess just the landrace breeding world. For example, cantaloupes. What we would do to create a landrace cantaloupe is we would order every packet of cantaloupe seed we could buy. Now, I'm not telling anybody to break the law because there are certain patented ones you can't save seeds from. So do your research. But in theory, if you could get 300 varieties of a cantaloupe, you mix up all the seed, you plant several acres of that, and then you just pick the ones that have the characteristics that are the very best. You do that for about 8 years. And then after 8 years, It's usually around 8 years. Your selection of the criteria, because you're going to select the same criteria every year. So after 8 years, the genetics stabilize. You have created a new variety that is adapted genetically to your pest problems, your soils, your climate, even your own habits as a farmer. And because the plants will adapt to their environment, and everything in their environment is what they adapt to. So it's pretty great. And so if you have a place where, let's say you have a grassland and there's 5 grasses out there that are getting green 3 weeks before all the other grass, boy, I would collect that grass seed. I would grow those up in a a little plot. I'd grow those for 5 or 6 years. I'd multiply it until I had enough grass seed to plant 1,000 acres. And now you have those genetics where you are greening grass in the springtime 3 weeks earlier. Would that help anybody to have, more more grass for your cattle? A great thing to do. So, people who are raising seeds and growing them commercially, this is something that you can do that is great. And then do that in the fall too. Go out there, look at your grasses that are staying greener longer into the fall. On drought years, what are the grasses that actually grew when you didn't have enough water? So these are the types of things we can do with landrace breeding. We just need to be aware that it can happen. And you don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have all the education about genetics to do this. There's 4 things you need to know, and I put them right here. You need to know that plants make seeds, okay? You need to know that children resemble their parents and grandparents. Sometimes a trait skips a generation, and you're going to get what you start with. So a sweet fruit is going to equal a sweet fruit in the next generation. A bitter one will equal bitter. If we're talking about grass, an early growing grass in the cold weather, those are the seeds to keep, because that's the trait you're looking for. So you have all the education you need. 10-year-old kids get excited about this. Train your children how to do this and send them out in the field to find this stuff. They love it. And anyway, it's brilliant stuff, and there's a lot of people doing this in the
Couple quick
vegetable.
questions. William.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve Campbell, did you have a question? Justin Morris asked, do you start with conventional, hybrid, or heirloom varieties when you start landrace breeding?
Okay, so the best thing to do in the vegetable world, people are always talking about heirlooms and how wonderful heirlooms are. I love heirlooms too, but heirlooms they were bred a long ways away, like Europe, and they have a cultural significance where you have an emotional tie to. But when we try to grow the heirloom tomato here, we get one fruit and it just doesn't do good. But does that make the heirloom bad? No. To answer your question and be clear, start with every seed you can. Hybrids are great because the next generation gives you all these crazy things that is maybe not a saleable crop, but you're already a step ahead with a hybrid, because the hybrid is it's going to open up that bottleneck of genetics that all the open pollinated ones have. So yeah, get heirlooms, get open pollinated, get hybrids, get any seeds you can of the same species, mix them up, plant a field, and that first year and second year and third year that you're selecting, it's going to look crazy. It's going to look nuts, because you have opened up the genetics, because all these things are cross-pollinating. But after about 8 years, you're going to have whatever you're selecting for. So if you need corn that grows in like the high mountains, like it's hard to grow sweet corn where I live. We're at 600 to 800 feet. We have an 80-day growing season. That's hard to grow corn here. But we are breeding landrace corn. My corn patch last year was awful. We had corn that was 8 feet tall. I had corn that was 3 feet tall. We had all kinds of colors. The ears themselves were all weird shapes. But I have one selection, one thing I'm looking for, and it's working. So, in 8 years, we'll have sweet corn that will grow in our climate. Okay, Jared, was there any more questions right now?
Just a quick one. Is that velvet leaf in the picture?
Oh, behind me? No, those are sunflowers. So there's sunflowers behind me there, and then there's corn here. So there's actually a whole field of corn in front of me. You just can't see it. So this is where the field was cut in half. So we're breeding sunflowers. Most big, beautiful sunflowers that have edible seeds, they have one head on them. We're breeding them to have multiple big heads on one stalk. So that's one of our projects. So anyway, exciting, fun stuff. Okay, there's the soil compaction tool called the penetrometer. I like this tool. It's not something you have to go out and buy, but it is fun because as you poke it in the ground, that gauge there, it will go up. And when you're hitting 150 pounds, then you know how deep your hard pan is, or your compaction layer. And so you hit the compaction layer and you can see, okay, is this 1 inch under the ground? Is this 7 inches under the ground? I've had places on this ranch, and we're talking about thousands of acres here, but I'll drive my side-by-side around and we'll just stick this in the ground all over. And some places I can't get in 1 inch. Other places, this is sinking in like 3 feet. It's not quite 3 feet that it penetrates, it's 30 inches, but it's just going all the way down in. But what this tells us is where our soil is functioning well, and that's where this thing will go all the way in, or where we need to work on it. We need to get more microbes in the areas where it's compacted. And then there's no-till planting tools. Obviously, this is a vegetable context here, but we can have a drill auger with a drill. Anything, if your garden is 1 acre or smaller, these tools are just fine. So a couple of different kinds of transplanters. The simple sharpened stick, we poke a hole in the ground and then we take the little vegetable transplants out and stick them in. And then there's this other one here that's you can transplant or you can put seeds in this, but this is how we do it. Now, if you find that when you go out with a sharpened stick and stick it in the ground, if your ground's too hard without tilling, then your detritus sphere is not thick enough with a vegetable context. So, because you need to have several inches of compost on top of that soil. So these things work just fine with never tilling. Livestock, look at those sheep. Boy, that's exciting to me. I'd love a flock of sheep like those. I think they'd scare all the coyotes away the way those ears look. But so there's livestock that we raise as a cash flow, but livestock also are one of our major tools, and they can only be used as an effective soil creating and maintaining tool if they are managed properly. So we can use all types of livestock, and different kinds of livestock need to be managed differently, and obviously on different kinds of land they need to be managed differently, but they are certainly one of the best soil building tools there is. If we just turn out livestock and then at the end of the year we go round them up and sell all the babies, that is not going to be building soil. That will be creating a desert in brittle environments. So the management is the key to having livestock be a tool. Okay, this is something that's in my book that's coming out. I've written a book. It's in manuscript form. I'm trying to get it published soon. But this is what I call a forms comparison chart. It's like a flow chart, but what I've done here, and I'll just teach you how to do this, because you can just do this on a blank piece of paper. Make yourself 5 columns, and in column B, C, D, and E, write down your ecological processes: water cycle, mineral cycle, energy flow, and then community dynamics. And then in column A, as you go down column A, on each row, you're going to put in your questions of management. So you could have 100 questions going down this column. Usually we're not dealing with 100 questions at once. If we are, we probably have a problem. But anytime you have a management question, run it through this chart. Now, let me show you how it works. So here's my first question: should I do heavy tillage on my land? And then we go to the blank here where we're going to put the answer, if you can see where my cursor is. So how will doing heavy tillage affect this water cycle in column B? Well, I'll give you the answer. It's going to be a bad thing. It's going to collapse your pores. It's going to kill your beneficial fungus. It's going to increase your activity of bacteria, which is going to make high nitrate in the soil, which is going to wake up your latent seed bed. So you'll have tons of weeds growing. So do we want to do heavy tillage compared in relationship to this water cycle? No, avoid it at all costs, because we just created a whole bunch of problems that we're going to have to fix. So let's go to column C. How does heavy tillage fix the mineral cycle or affect the mineral cycle? Well, like I already said, it's going to collapse those pores. It's going to damage the fungus, and fungus is one of our major mineralizers that creates the minerals our plants need. So after 3 or 4 tillages, we may be absolutely dependent on an artificial fertilizer source. So no, we don't want to do it. Now let's go to column D. How is tillage going to affect energy flow? And remember, energy flow is the photosynthesis. Well, it depending on context, it could help it. If you have a piece of land that's not growing any plants, like a piece of desert, tillage may not be a bad thing, because there's a chance it could get the microbial life going, mainly the bacteria going, and they might create enough nitrate that it wakes up seeds, and the seeds could grow, and that could be a blessing, because then we don't have to plant a seed we buy if it would wake up some natural bunch of weeds that were in the just in the soil, just laying there, just waiting for something to wake them up. So maybe it could be good for that, but usually it's not going to help the energy flow. But that's a place where maybe this could be a yes. If you have a productive land, I would say no, it's not going to help this, because it's going to hurt the other cycles. What about ecological succession? How's tillage going to affect that? Well, it depends. If I have land that's very high in fungus and very low in the bacterial ratio, but my job is to grow kale, cabbage, cauliflower, then maybe tillage could help that, because it would kill out a bunch of the fungus, and I need more bacteria in my soil than fungus. So maybe that could help. But if we already have a great structure in our soil and we're already growing plants without adding fertilizer, this is going to mess that up. So for most agriculture and for most pastures, the answer would be no on all of these. I'm not going to spend time to go through any more examples, but just think about this. But this is a tool to help us think. Like I mentioned earlier, one of our earlier presenters said our job is to think. This is a tool that helps us think in an effective way. And the whole reason I wrote my book was because of this chart. First of all, I made this chart, and then I thought, oh man, I need to make an explanation. It turned into a 6-chapter book just on this chart.
Well, maybe
Okay.
pause
Jared,
just a
go ahead.
second. So one question is, grazing livestock on land that is very wet. That is something that we deal with on our irrigated acres. We can manage that because we can shut off the water, but I know that there are areas where, and times of the year where they are extremely wet. So do you pause your super high intensity grazing during those periods? Or do you focus on building resiliency in that sponge in the soil? So when Gabe Brown gets 13 inches of rain, you can drive on your field and not get wet. But ultimately what do you do in the interim if you're not Gabe Brown?
That's the golden question. What does anybody do if we're not Gabe Brown? So there's from the scenario you gave me, there's 2 things you could do. You could graze that land, but you're going to have to do it as an experiment, not as a production thing. So you would graze a portion of it, see what happens. Be very mindful about it. What happened when you put those cattle there? Did it help the plants grow? Or did it hurt the plant growth? Did it compact the soil? So there's a lot of variables, but and I don't even know what the variables are because I'm not on your land looking at it right now, you know. The other thing is you could say, okay, let's not graze the cattle there. Let's grow as much forage as we can on that place. And then that will be a place that we can graze in the fall or the winter, you know, but we just need to be thinking those whole things through.
But yeah, the awareness, at least they're aware that there's the threat there. Another question, this is probably Kaylee asking this. How do I prepare a seed bed for planting if I don't use tillage?
Okay, yeah, so back to those pictures. Remember those pictures? Just put down your cardboard. You can do that right on your lawn. You can do that on gravel. You can do it on a driveway. Put down cardboard. That will stop any perennial weeds, bad things like quackgrass and morning glory. Put down 3 or 4 layers of cardboard. Make sure you're overlapping the cardboard. Put detritus on top of it. So do you need a lot of compost? Yeah, in a gardening context, you need to be making compost, a lot of it. So put all that detritus on top, at least 4 inches, 12 inches is better. And then you get your plants planted in there, maintain it, grow it, and you'll have a beautiful garden. I've started dozens and dozens. I could say hundreds. I don't know if it's actually hundreds, but it's getting close. Over my life, I've done that. And they all work very well that way. Now, if you're talking about a garden where you're maybe an acre big, then you need to do more of what I was showing with growing cover crops. Grow cover crops, roll them down. If you don't have a roller, you can mow them down, although you need to know that mowing will stimulate growth in the plant, where a roller crimper will terminate it. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, I think that does. Another good question here. What about using fire as a tool? What does it do to the biology? And I guess it would run it through your checks, right? But what are your responses?
So I would not use fire. There's several reasons why not to use fire. Fire has traditionally been used throughout history, but you are removing your very best food source for the fungus. Okay, so using fire, we are assuming that it's not a green living plant anymore, or it won't burn. So you're talking about burning something at the end of the year, once the carbon to nitrogen ratios are, you have lots of carbon, less nitrogen. So now you're going to have lots of fungus food and less bacteria food. What that means is you are throwing away money, because if you burn it, now you have to haul in dump truckload fulls of that detritus to put on the ground. That is your very best friend. Figure out a way to smash it down. If you don't have a roller crimper, put 10,000 cattle on a 1/4 of an acre. If they will fit, leave them there for 12 hours and then move them. It will be trumped down. That's the kind of thing you want to do. Use cattle to roll down your crops. Use roller crimpers. You can mow it, but depending on the time of year, it may not be as effective. But I would never burn, because you might as well get, $10,000 cash and light it up. That's how I see it. There could be a context where burning might be okay, but I've never seen it. And if you see a place, contact me if you say burning was the best thing we ever did. I would be interested in that. Okay, so we just went through all the tools, and here's some tests. Here again, I'm going to fly through this, okay? This is just a water infiltration test. Most of you on today probably are aware of this, but what this test tells you, how much water will soak up. And that's your goal. You want to soak up as much water as possible. Soak up lots of water. The soil should be a sponge. It should hold the water so that your plants have water during the dry spells. If your plants are wilty, just think about your lawn in front of somebody's yard. If there are sprinkler systems coming on every morning because it dies in 3 days, they have a major problem with their soil health. So we should be able to get, 2 or 3 inches of water on our land, and then those plants are growing good for, a couple of months. Of course, context matters, climate matters a little bit to that statement, but in general, that's pretty accurate. The last thing here of what this shows you is it can tell you the danger your land has of erosion. If you're not infiltrating pretty quickly, your land is in danger of the soil eroding away. A bricks test. This is super easy. I bought this bricks meter for I think like $14, but yeah, that was years ago. With inflation, they maybe $20 now, but anybody can buy one of these. But what it tells you is the sugar content of your plant. You smash up plant juice, you put it on the little window there on the left side. I'll show you with my cursor right here. The plant juice goes right here. You look in it, and there's a graduation inside there like a ruler, and it will change colors. And so you can tell how much sugar is in your plant. Plants that have high sugar have high pest resistance from insects. And so if I had low sugar content to my plants, I wouldn't spray for insects. I would work on my soil health. And that's how you get your plants to be insect resistant. The next tool, the next test is the slake test. And what this one tells you is whether or not your soil will hold together when it's saturated with water. And the reason we want to know that is simple. Will your soil erode? And do you have good structure to the soil to be able to hold all of the nutrients in that soil to be available to the plants? But mainly this is kind of like an erosion test. This will tell you if you need to be worried about erosion or not, because erosion obviously is a major thing especially in crops land because of tillage. The shovel test. Everybody has a shovel, and if you don't, that's odd. So anybody can do this test, but this test is basically telling you about the spheres of the soil. We've got the 6 spheres, but this is going to tell you the 5 spheres under the soil, at the soil surface and under. And it can also tell you about hard pans, earthworm counts. The color of the soil can give you ideas about how much carbon is in your soil, and the smell of the soil can help you identify how much oxygen is in the soil. If you dig up a shovel full of dirt and you smell it, and it has any foul odor, if it has an anaerobic odor, like that would be like a rotten egg smell or a sewer smell, that's a bad thing. And that means you don't have oxygen. And always remember, the oxygen is our #1 nutrient in the soil. So our soils should have no smell, or they should smell sweet like a forest floor. So, there's a lot we can learn. We could talk an hour just about this one picture here. So we're not going to, but just making you aware that the shovel test is really important, and not very many people do it, but it's the easiest thing we can do. The next test that I like is a species count and identification test. And this simply tells us over time how we're doing. Are we building soils that will create grasslands that are fertile, or are we creating deserts? So by taking pictures of these every year, and by counting the actual species that are here. So we would say, okay, in this picture on the left here, that's mostly grass, I have basically 1 species right there. I planted this field to 3 species, but when I do my test, all I have is the cereal rye that's coming up. And then, so if you're planting fields, you're not having very much. But in a pasture situation, in a forage situation where we're grazing animals, I would want to have at least 8 to 10 species. 20 species is much better. No, not necessarily in 1 foot, but within that field, there should be a lot of species. And we should be seeing 3 or 4 species within a foot. So that's a good thing. Over here, you can see how there's a lot of bare dirt here. This is bad. This picture, it needs a lot of work. Take pictures when you do this, write down how many species there are, and write down how thick they are. And then from year to year, you compare this. After a decade, you can see if you are building soil or if you are creating a desert that will not have cattle. This is important to do, especially if you're running cattle on arid land. This is something you want to start keeping track of. Plot planting test. This is what a test I love to use to test the soil. No, this isn't something that you would go out and just do a big test of planting something to see how the soil is. We automatically do this. So what you actually do, just drive your four-wheeler or ride your horse across your land and look down a lot. And if you find areas of your fields where stuff is not growing, then you know the areas that need improvement. And the best way to improve it is to inoculate it with the microbes. If you have cattle, feed those cattle hay in the wintertime on those bare spots, because you're getting the detritus on the soil, and the cattle's manure is going to be inoculating it with good microbes. If you don't have cattle, you need to be making compost and getting the compost extract out there. Side-by-side comparison tests are used to to test different plant varieties. So this picture is the summertime. Now, if you look right here, again, I'm pointing with my cursor if you can follow that, but this is the summertime. This is hot weather. And I've heard all my life, lettuce doesn't like to grow in hot weather. Well, that's true if you have a cool weather variety. We need the right varieties to grow at the right time of year. So this is a buttercrunch lettuce, which is growing in the summer. It doesn't like it. It looks nothing like a buttercrunch lettuce. See how it's kind of gray and dusty, and it's going to seed. See how it's shooting up right here? And you can see the really tight rosette on the middle. So it doesn't like this. So I grew 10 different varieties right here side by side. So there's this one, that one, that one. And some of these are not doing, this one's not doing super good. It's not growing very fast. This one's not growing very fast, but look at this red romaine. It's doing very well in the hot weather. So now I know in my climate with my conditions, this plant here, this specific variety is doing okay in the hot weather. So next year, I know what to grow an entire field of or whatever, within context. We're growing food to feed, around 20 people here. So that's our context. But now I know, because if I just came out and planted this one, because we think that the buttercrunch lettuce is a good lettuce, we plant the whole greenhouse to it, we say, oh, you know what? We can't grow lettuce in the summer. And that's what we conclude, which is a false assumption because we didn't do the test. So the tests are vital. And then here I am at 2 o'clock in the morning with my wild scientist hair. My wife came in and see why I wasn't in bed, and she took this picture, and then she said she liked it, and I thought that's embarrassing, but here I am showing it to the whole world. But all the other tests we've seen are appropriate for anybody to do. If you're going to start doing soil testing, you need some training to actually know what you're doing. And not that people can't do it, it's just you're going to have to take some classes to learn what to do. But there are two worlds or trains of thought, or however you want to think about it, of soil testing. The old, like the most common soil testing has been around for a long time, since 1940s, 50s. And that tests the soils for available plant nutrients so that we know what plant will grow. And then when we get the test back, we say, okay, the plant nutrient that's available there's certain nutrients lacking, and so I need to add those in the form of a fertilizer. That's been the way we've done it for a long time. But the second train of thought or mindset about soil tests is we want to see which microbes are present in the soil that are alive and active, that are creating or will create, because if they're alive and they have food to eat, they will create the nutrients that my plants need. And so I do the second type. I have a microscope. You can see it here in the picture. And then I'll point to the camera. This is the camera right here. The cord's coming over to the computer. So I don't have to get my eyes tired after hours of doing this by looking in the microscope. We can just analyze the microbes that are present in the soil samples right here on the computer screen. The technology is beautiful. It makes it so easy nowadays. Using the technology is pretty easy. The hardest part would be knowing what the microbes look like, so you can identify those, and then how to adjust your soil So that's where more training comes in for this type of test.
Hey,
The
William?
second, yeah, go ahead.
You're on a roll. I know you've got a lot to share for like the next 3 weeks. What do you think you can wrap it up in about 5 minutes and then take a few questions?
Yeah, yeah, I'm almost done.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. So the last test here is a sap analysis test. So I just put this picture of a cabbage leaf here so we can get an idea of what we're doing, but we would take a leaf sample. This works for alfalfa, for any kind of grass, any forage that's out there, in any vegetable, any fruit. But we would take a leaf sample of the plant. So if it was an apple tree, we wouldn't test the apple, we would test the apple leaf. But the sap analysis test tells us what is happening right now. So if we take a test of this, we know what the plant is absorbing today, but we don't know what it absorbed last week. We don't know what it will absorb next week. But this is pretty technical. This would be something that would be really beneficial for somebody who had 1,000-acre vegetable farm, and they are dialing in on specific crops in specific areas of the field. This is not something home gardeners would do, and I don't think you would need to. So this is pretty technical stuff, but it's out there, it's available. People who are doing this are getting really good stuff happening. Okay, so that's basically the end of my presentation here. So this right here, here's the fundamentals that we went over in the beginning. And then here's what you do. We got our tests and our tools and what we do. So I'm just going to leave this slide up. This is how I help people. I've got my school. I do a 17-week farmer training class. I have a boot camp. I actually have one coming up in 2 weeks, and there's still room for a few people. If you want to come to Nevada and play in my greenhouse and get dirty, I'll teach you how to plant plants and all that stuff. It's going to be great. Let's take some questions. I'm open for questions.
That's awesome, William. Thank you. So yeah, William does a lot of things. Those are the ways to connect with him. If and especially if you're interested in small scale vegetable production, it is great. But he also has a laboratory, and so does soil samples. He's trained with the Leiningen, and he definitely understands looking at the big picture, you know. So one of the questions that I'm not sure if we fully answered this, or there's not necessarily a recipe, but we know that soils are in early succession are highly bacterial. How do we speed up that transition to more of a balance between the fungal bacterial, and where is that balance for? And I guess it depends, right? But I'm going to say most of us here are cattle producers. Where is that balance if we want a thriving grasslands? And then there's another couple questions.
Yeah, so for cattle producers, one of our number one jobs in the production would be growing grass and forages. So you're going to want your fungal to bacterial ratio to be kind of equal. So you need equal amounts of, fungus and bacteria in the ground. So that's going to be mid-succession. On that succession chart, it's mid-succession. That's where grasslands occur. And how do you get it from early succession to that mid-succession? You feed the fungus. So I think everybody on this class today, we understand that if we want to have cattle, then we have to feed them. We don't buy a 1,000-acre ranch and then just go out there every day and look at the pasture and say, man, I wonder where the cattle are. We have to buy cattle and put them on the land. So that means that we have to actually put the fungus out there too. So we need to inoculate with fungus, and we need to feed the fungus. Let's imagine that we just put the the cattle out there, but we never fed them. Let's just say it was sand, nothing to eat, but they're out there on the 1,000 acres. They're not going to last very long. And that's the same with the fungus. We have to feed the fungus. So how do we feed the fungus? We feed them by having the plants that are dead and woody that are out there on the land. So how do you do that in a pasture? You do that by only grazing part of the forage. If you're grazing it all the way down, grazing it super short, and then moving on, you don't have enough of those mature plants that get trumped in to feed the fungus. So you need a level of maturity to the plants that get put back in. You could do that with mowing. You could do that with adding wood chips, but how do you do that? How do you add wood chips to a cattle farm? I mean, nobody has that many wood chips, so it's not practical. But so two things: feed the fungus and put the fungus out there. And I would say feed them first. You want to get the food ready and then you inoculate. You don't want to buy a herd of cattle unless you have something to feed them. And it's the same with the microbes in the soil. Get the food source first and then inoculate. And you can inoculate with cattle because the cattle will be creating lots of all of the different bacteria that are in the rumen. They're going to go out in the manure, and the local fungal spores that are already in your environment are going to be there. And that's an important key. There's a lot of companies trying to sell fungus and fungal spores and all these things. I don't know if I agree with that too much, because if I buy it from a completely different climate, they're probably not going to grow in my climate anyway. So you need to just get the food source out there and they naturally come in. So the way that you would inoculate is by build a compost pile, and then you can inoculate with that. Anyway.
Okay.
Let's move on to another question.
Let's do
forever.
Yeah, we'll do one more question, and then we'll I think you had something that you wanted to give away. We'll jump into that.
Yeah.
So explain the relationship between lime fertilizer and why people lime all the time. Joe, if you want to jump on the chat and just tell us where you're from, that'll give us a little more context, because I assume it's east, because we don't do that practice in the west.
Yeah.
It's more
Yeah. Lime is it's pretty common in the eastern United States because the soils are different. We don't have to lime here. In fact, when geologists do tests here, they have to wash the rocks first to get the natural lime off of it, or they get false readings. So in the Willamette Valley of Oregon, we did lime there. People do naturally lime. So it's a pH adjustment. You know, if your soil test comes back and your pH is not correct for the plant you're planning to grow, the soil test will recommend that you add so many tons of lime or gypsum. If you need to adjust your pH the other way, you can add sulfur. So, but all of those additives, those are just fertilizer type amendments that are it's becoming obsolete to use those with the new science that we have nowadays.
Okay, good answer. Thank you, William.
Yeah.
Let's jump in. What is it that a winner is going to get if they are picked randomly?
Okay, I'm gonna stop my screen share here real quick. So I can see everybody.
Perfect.
So I wanted to just give away a couple of 30-minute sessions of personal mentoring. But let me be clear. I know most of you are cattle people. I'm not a cattle expert. I do understand soils. I know how to grow grass. I can do that. The main thing that I focus on is helping families grow enough fruits and vegetables in their own gardens to feed themselves. So it's not a hobby, but you're really feeding yourself. So if that's appealing to you, that's what I'm giving away, is 30 minutes of mentoring on how to grow enough food in your own garden to produce, enough food to feed your family. Because most people's what they produce in their family or what they produce in their garden, it takes more money and time than a lot of people. That's how gardening goes.
Hey, Will, can I jump in for a second?
Go ahead, Shannon.
I just want to brag on you for a minute. I took a bunch of my students up. That was 2022, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
last
last spring.
Yeah, we came up for a week. I had probably 10 students with me for a week with Will. It was phenomenal. If you're not happy with what your gardens are doing, I'm telling you, you got to do stuff with Will. It's so awesome. He's a little weird. His personality, his humor is a little weird, but you'll get used to it. But he's awesome. We just really loved it. I have a student who's going up to do his long-term boot camp here in a few months. And I just can't say enough about his program. I've been studying a lot of the stuff that he's doing. He's actually doing it. Jared's been talking about all through here, the speakers, about how they have, they're the real deal. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
Will is the real deal on this stuff. So, I hope that all the people are watching this really value what he's offering, because it's a big deal. Okay, I'll shut up.
Thanks, Shannon. That was an unsolicited testimonial. So, so a 30-minute consultation with William, great value, and yeah, more people, I mean, geared towards soil health, definitely. William can help you out in a lot of ways. He helped me to get grounded before we started this meeting, but probably would be more towards helping with your soil, not so much the personal mentoring side, or massage therapy, or all the other things that he's able to do effectively. So some of you have cameras on. Let's pick our first winner from somebody who has a camera on. Maybe somebody who can jump up and down, make the weirdest faces, somebody who can wave your hands. Show us if you are interested in taking this opportunity. Holy cow, you guys are doing great. You guys are doing great. I see some people that have won. This is going to be kind of Michelle. Let's go with Michelle. Thank you guys for participating. You guys did a great job. So Michelle, William, if you want to take down her name, Michelle Phillips, and I will make sure that you two are connected. Now let's raise a virtual hand. So we'll make it fair here. Some of you, I know you can't be on, but raise a virtual hand. And if you would be interested in working with William one-on-one for half an hour. All right. Lee, unmute for just a minute. Are you able to, or are you driving? I see Lee's iPhone. We don't know your last name, Lee. Okay, we're gonna have to. Maybe you might. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Yeah, what's your last name, Lee?
Olson. My last name's Olson.
What part of the world are you from?
I'm near Salt Lake.
Oh, that's not too far away. We're neighbors.
Yeah, this is actually kind of fun for me. I actually met William a few years back when he was in Oregon. And so just been kind of remembering that experience and wondering if it would be fun to talk to him again. So yeah, it's kind of fun to be chosen for this.
All right. Well, very good. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
What did you say, William? Was it 2 or 3?
Let's do 5.
Holy cow. Okay. Shiloh. Are you serious? You want to work with this guy? I mean, I think maybe you knew him.
I
What
do
do you
know
have to
him.
do consultation with William?
Oh, we have a big family and I would love to know how to provide more food for them out of our garden. We've struggled for a few years with it. So
And tell us where in the world you're from.
Blackfoot, Idaho.
All right. Very good. Thanks, Shiloh. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, William, you pick.
Oh, is that fair?
Well, do you want to be unbiased?
Yeah,
you can pick
let's be
somebody that doesn't-
unbiased. It's not
Okay.
fair. I'm seeing
This is-
faces on here that know me. I'm gonna get in trouble.
Let's go with
So,
Grant.
I have Joe Samaro.
Okay, what was the name, Selena?
Joe Samaro.
Okay, Joe, are you on?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
live part-time in Wisconsin on my farm and also in upstate South Carolina. And both places, we try to grow our garden, and in South Carolina, I have a lot of troubles because of the red soil, and I don't know how to fix or grow.
Awesome, good. Glad you have some specific things that you want to come to the call with. Okay, and then we're just gonna switch pages here, making sure I see everybody with their hands raised. Thanks you guys for playing here. This is pretty fun. The other name, this is somewhat intuitive, it's somewhat random. We're trying to be fair, but Grant Bowman, we didn't pick you, right? Grant Bowman, are you able to unmute?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, tell us about where you're from, Grant.
I'm from Southern Illinois, the very far tip, close about 30 miles from Kentucky and Missouri both.
Okay.
We're pretty good at growing grass, but terrible at growing tomatoes.
Hey, you're a farmer. I can I can resonate that.
Yeah.
Give me a field, but give me a garden, I can grow weeds. So that's why we hired William, by the way, because my wife is a pretty good gardener. I really stink, but William can grow a lot of food. So, well, thank you. So those are our 5 winners. Very congratulations, everybody. Give a round of applause to Lee Olson, Michelle Phillips, Shiloh Bingham, Joe Samaro, and Grant Bowman. And we've got your names down. We will connect you to. So what it is a Zoom consultation with William. Come with your questions, come prepared, and there'll probably be some pre-work, right, William, to be able to be prepared for that. So, okay. So
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, William. Big round of applause for William DeMille.
Thank you.
All right, you guys are great. Okay, so we're gonna do a couple things here just so you're aware of. Those of you who didn't get the link earlier, this is a special invitation for you and you alone for being here. Invite you to jump on. So if you want a lifetime recording, lifetime access to this, we will give you this link right here. I got to find it, copy and paste it. Okay, so again, this goes to how come it's not doing it? I might have to have. Okay, Selena, I don't know if you're in a place that you can share the link.
Yeah, I got it. So.
Okay. Oh, there it is. Okay, there's a link. The special promo code for you guys for being here is Regen 23, REGEN 23. Type it in.
I can do it.
Okay, and then go ahead and if you would share the Facebook, we created a Facebook group. We invite all of you to be able to join that. And that's a way to be able to carry on the conversation, what we've started here. It is so awesome to see people from different parts of the country, and we welcome you. I think if we're going to truly find answers and solutions to the significant challenges that we face, we're going to have to build a team, and we're going to have to collaborate with each other. And so that's my goal for starting that Facebook group, is that we can look to each other for answers and be able to find some support when we need it, right? Because that journey, when we start into regenerative agriculture, sometimes it can be scary, it can be unknown. And I know that from when I started. Let's see, what is the name of the Facebook group? I think it is I don't know. Selena will look it up here. Also, don't worry too much if you can't copy those things. I will send them all out in an email. Also, I'll send in an email an invitation to read my book for free on Kindle. Or it'll just be a digital download. So Searching for Home, Finding Grace, the book that I was inspired to write a couple years ago. And so you'll just when it comes to the thank you page, download it from there. I haven't got the email trigger figured out how to send the email yet, But anyway, I'll send you the link to the ebook, the Facebook page, and you should already have the summit login or the recording one. Yeah, so it's the Profitable Regeneration Stewardship Facebook group. Say that 3 times real fast. All the words that I am passionate about, I tried to get into the name there. Well, not all of them, but okay. So I'm going to stand up here, have a little more energy. And so William, if you'll go ahead and monitor the chat and do the facilitating here. If you guys are good to stick on for a few more minutes, we have, we're going to bait this thing a little bit. So we do have a special offer at the very end, and we invite you to be present. So Selena has already drawn those winners. And if you'll stick on to the end, you'll be able to hear what that is. And then I'll make some other, share some other information about what we're doing. So I'm going to, let's see, share my screen here. I appreciate very much the work that goes into building one of these. I didn't realize beforehand what it took. Now I know why. Nope, I don't want to do that. I want to go. I know why this is very valuable and why people actually charge for this. So it's not necessarily a way that we're what we're looking at is a way to improve the reach, and that's why there's a charge to it, and also that you can value the information that you've gotten. So a quick question, everybody type in the chat, what motivates you? They say that psychologists say there's 2 primary motivators. Anybody know what those are? They both start with P, pleasure and pain. We trend to move towards pleasure and move away from pain. And in the email I shared the other day, I encourage you to tap into that 3rd motivator, which is a lot stronger than either pleasure or pain, and that is purpose. So how do we find what our purpose is? It's a journey, and it starts with asking some deep questions like, why was I put on this earth? Who was I born to be? What is it that my maker, my creator wants me to do? Somebody wise once said that our vocation is that thing which God wants us to do. So when we find that vocation, we're tapping into our purpose. And I think Buddha said our purpose in life is to find our purpose in life and then give all of our energies and efforts into living that purpose. I paraphrase that, but that's the essence of it. So a wise person shared with me also, his name was Paul Janot, when I was a snot-nosed kid, 18 years old, working on the Deseret Ranch. He shared this quote with me: an excuse for non-performance, no matter how valid, weakens the character. So are we making excuses? Definitely. Sometimes there are reasons that we fail. There's reasons that we fall down, but failure is not the end. It's just a learning. It's just a part of the learning journey. And if we're tapped into our purpose, like we just read this book as a book group, and some of us, men, we feel like we're part of our mission is to be able to support freedom and support our families and to be able to teach truth. And so I think it was William DeMille that recommended this book. This message to Garcia. This young soldier received a message from the president of the United States that he needed to deliver to a general in Cuba. And I think that it was Lieutenant Rowan. When he got the message, he didn't say, but where is he? How do I do it? How do I get there? How do I get to Cuba? What does this man look like? He said, I'll go and I'll do it. And he did it because he knew a purpose and he didn't make excuses and he got the job done. And that's what I'm encouraging us to do. What is our purpose? What is our purpose unique to regenerative agriculture? If you're just new to it, maybe you're just finding out. Maybe you're really passionate about connecting producers with consumers. There's a need for everybody in this space, if that's what you feel your calling is. And so just because you don't own land doesn't mean that you don't have a place and you don't have value to add in the regenerative agriculture movement. So I want to talk about real quickly some of the threats that we face in agriculture. Death, certainly, premature death, death by suicide, death of a loved one, if we don't have a proper plan in place, can destroy a business. Right now, estate taxes are not that bad. I guess they went up this year. So there's always a need to have a plan. Divorce, again, whatever the statistics are, maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 30%. I'm not okay with statistics because I don't want to be a statistic. I've got 9 kids and I'm not okay with half of them getting divorced. And so I believe that we can and we must intervene in those statistics so that we can live our missions and our purposes. Another one is depression. Not something that we've dealt with in our family. It's something that I know can be very debilitating. And if you don't understand it, you think, well, just buck up and get over it. But I've been there. I've had situational depression. We've had it in our children. Just to bring it home a little bit, one of my sons came home early from a mission because we knew he had depression when he left, but it got to the point that he couldn't function and he came home. He's found answers. He's happily married, but yes, it is there. It can be a threat to a business. And so what do we do about it is the question. Disease, do you have disease, disability? I could probably put those two together. They're both D's, or trying to get alliterations here. And then the last one would be disaster. You can probably add to this list, but some of those things that are maybe acts of God, heavy snow winters, and then the last two would be allergies and addictions, those fight, flight, freeze reactions that Tyler talked about yesterday, right? So if we look at these things in the context of a business and we say, where is our weak link? What can we do to strengthen our business? What we need to do is have a contingency plan for each of these things, a solid estate plan, so that if somebody dies, or when somebody dies, it's not if, right? When somebody dies, that our business can stay intact, it can stay viable, and we can continue on without getting derailed or having to sell off assets or divorce. I'm mixed about having a plan for this because I'm not planning for divorce, but I would just go back to, what is our estate plan, right? Let me back up. Yesterday, we talked about or 2 days ago, it seemed these days are kind of run together. It seems like we've been here for about 2 months and everybody should know each other on a first name basis. We talked about one of the principles for preparing for the first turning is strengthening family. And so that's what I'm going to say about divorce, is strengthen your family. Sometimes it's inevitable, sometimes it's the right thing to do, but by all means, do all that you can so that you can strengthen your family, teach your children to be committed, to get married and be committed. And with each of those, if we have a contingency plan, we can work through it. I want to share something that is a little bit vulnerable, but I felt like this morning as I was preparing that I should share that. And that's specifically about number 3. So several years ago, we'd gone through a series of financial reversals. We had some things happen that made it so that we were in a position that we were kind of unfinanceable. And it kind of came to a head when I got a letter from our current bank, and you know how you open something and your mind's working and it kind of zooms in on one thing. Well, that thing that it zoomed in on for me was foreclosure. And I thought, wait a minute. Where's my loan officer here? How come he didn't tell me this was coming? What? And at first I wanted to blame. Anyway, that was a big weight that I carried around for a while. I had the distinct impression that I needed to reach out to some specific individuals. And I felt like that it didn't really make sense to go and work with them at this time. And I'll just name who it was. I'd been through the Ranching for Profit school. I'd been in the Executive Link program. And then I transitioned out of it, and I felt like I got the help that I needed in the time that I was there. But Dave Pratt reached out, he offered the invitation, and I felt like, okay, this is what I need to do, even though my wife didn't really agree with it at that point. But I made the steps, I jumped in the Executive Link program, and in that first meeting of the year in January, as I talked with our group, so the way the Executive Link is functioned, some of you might be in it or have been in it, but you've got a group of fellow businessmen who you mastermind with. And so fortunately, again, nothing happens by chance, but I was with a group of people who were very seasoned. They weren't startups. They were generational family ranchers, and they offered me a ton of support. So during that meeting, I came to the realization that, holy cow, the reason you don't have clarity of mind and are not able to see answers and solutions because, Jared, you're dealing with depression. And it was interesting that from that group, several individuals reached out to me and they shared their own experience of how they or somebody close to them had gone through depression. And that was the support group that I needed to be able to manage through a very difficult time in my life. We went on to be able to find answers to financial, but for me, of all the threats, that was the one that came to a head right then. That was the one that was the burning fire that I needed help with. And each of us at some point in time, we're going to need help with something, right? We think that we can get through it by ourselves, but the fact of the matter is we're not, we're not put on this earth to, we're not put on an island. Like, we're put here to support each other. And so something that I put together is a way that we can support each other. These words are very near and dear to my heart. Stewardship, legacy. I was going to go into more in depth about what they are. And then ask this question: what is your most valuable asset? And I encourage you to just type that into the chat. What is it that you value most? What is it, that thing? Is it your green tractor? Is it your house? Is it your ranch? Or is it your family? Is it your mind and your ability to learn? Is it your ability to work with a divine creator to be able to create things here on the earth? What is it that you value the most? And maybe it's an asset. Maybe you could argue that there's a different name for it. But so if we look at successful people in the world, success always follows patterns. And people that are successful, there are some commonalities. And this is not an all-inclusive list, but this is a list that when I looked for somebody that I needed support from when I went through a very challenging time, these are the things that I had, on my list, even though I didn't have them maybe spelled out, but there had to be a level of accountability. I realized that I had to change my mindset from what I was thinking to a higher level of thinking, right? Einstein said the current level of thinking that we're at, or no, what was it? Something about we're in the problems that we're in because of the way we think. And so we have to change the way we think. I had to gain some skills to be able to break through the challenges that I was facing. Some tactical skills like the financial ability that Alan Crockett talked about. And there was also some more non-tangible skills that I had to acquire as well, to be able to learn how to release emotions, how to be able to heal relationships, how to be able to come to love and accept myself, where I was, how I was, with my flaws, and recognize that I still had value, even though maybe a piece of paper said I didn't, even though my net worth maybe had gone down, and cash flow was a struggle, I still had value as a person. So those were the skills that I had to gain. Also, somebody is going to help you to create a compelling vision, and then to create a team, somebody that will support you when you're going through your trials and your struggles. So as we conclude here, I just wanted to offer an opportunity to be able to carry on the conversation, specifically with working with some of the people here in this group. So I've talked to some of them about this program, but what I sent out a program guide this morning, and I encourage each of you to take time to dig that up in your email. You don't need to do it right now. But what this program outlines is originally I looked at it as the big picture, and then I worked it backwards. So it's a 2-year program to design a profitable legacy plan for your business. It's a way to be able to create an ongoing business, address the current issues and challenges that you're facing, and then transition into what you need to be successful long-term. So some of the things that we'll cover in the program are, if you kind of scroll through that, how to be able to create a personal and business mission and values that are compelling that you can share with your team, doing an in-depth economic and financial analysis, basic soil line testing to see, I wish that I could go back. Right now we're doing monitoring through the Savory Institute, which I highly recommend. But I wish that I could go back and had 20 years of data instead of just 4 years of data. So the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best is now. The best time to start monitoring is today if you haven't already. Entity structure and analysis. If you're just a sole proprietor, if you only have one checkbook and you're trying to manage your business and your personal finances together, you're not really running a business. A lot of times it's just an expensive hobby. But we don't know that because we don't, nobody taught us to get into these things. I can probably share this with you for those of you who don't. And so that's what we are. There we go. Can you guys see that? Okay. So yeah, this is just what I'd sent to you this morning. Again, maybe it's, and I'm not the one who's going to do the actual forming of the LLC or the S Corp, but we have CPAs and attorneys who we work with that I'll connect you with. And that's the value of having these relationships. Probably one of the biggest things is the weekly accountability. That is the thing that I gained the most from working with coaches, is somebody who pushed me to do the uncomfortable. And really largely that is why this summit came to pass, is because I was working with a coach who saw the potential that I had. He recognized my fight or flight responses and that I was backing away from something that was uncomfortable, but that was going to serve me, and not only me, but the 240 people who signed up. So he helped me, pushed me, encouraged me, held me accountable so that I could do something very uncomfortable to be able to create an impact towards my mission. And then surround yourself with a team of experts and create workable and duplicatable systems. This is a little bit about how it works. And bottom line is that it is customizable. Like, it's not a one size fits all program. And it's not something that you can just, from me in Nevada to somebody else in Colombia, say, okay, this is just what your answers are going to be. So the way that you engage in this is, I was going to set up a funnel and I didn't do it. I didn't have it perfect, but yet I'm going to go for it. And I feel like there are certain people on here that would benefit from a program like this. So what I encourage you to do is, if you feel like this is the right program for you, you go ahead and reach out to me via text. And Selena, if you can just put my personal number in there, and just say, let's set up a strategy session. Let's set up a call. And so through that, we'll reach out, we'll coordinate calendars, we'll make sure it's the right fit. And if it's not, we'll point you in the right direction of who might be the right fit, right? And so I feel like, there's probably 3, 5, maybe 7 people that have been in this, but specifically those who have stuck it out to the end, who can benefit from what this program that we've put together. So with that, are there any questions about that? And then we're going to do something pretty cool here at the end. That was kind of rushed, but oh, Selena got the right phone number there. So again, reach out via text and just say, yeah, let's so the Stewardship Solutions Program Guide is found in an email that was sent out this morning. It was the second email. There were 3 that went out as reminders.
I
So
didn't
look,
see it, Jared. I'm not sure. Maybe it didn't go out. So we'll have to double check on that.
okay, also check your spam folder sometimes. That I know sometimes it gets sent to the promotion file or whatever. So, okay, somebody said it came in this morning. Hopefully you were able to open that. Okay, so with that, we appreciate everyone who has stayed here to the end. And if you let's see, if you've signed up for the Lifetime Summit, just raise your hand if any of you that were able to sign up so far. I'm just wondering if that process worked. Okay, we got 1, 2, anybody else? So it did work. There weren't any glitches in it.
Sign up for the Lifetime Summit?
What?
Did you sign up for the Lifetime Summit?
No,
Okay.
I didn't get the code. It's $49 unless you get the code.
Yeah, so the code, oh, thank you for, sorry, I think I just clicked on you and go ahead, Joneses.
Sorry, we were conferring about the
Okay.
code thing.
Okay, so the code again is Regen 23, all caps, REGEN 23. And I encourage you to do that. We're going to try to make it into more of a user-friendly format, but for now, you'll just be able to keep access to those privately, listed videos. So I would love to carry on further conversations with whoever feels like it's the right next step for you. And you've been given contact information from some great individuals here. I encourage you to reach out to them directly. One of these individuals, again, is Steve Campbell. So Steve offered something which was pretty awesome, and he wanted to do it as kind of a reward, and we alluded to that. But we have, again, I told you that people would be trolling and looking and seeing who was on, who had their cameras on, and who was engaged the whole time. So Selena took those names from each of the days at random times during the day of people who had their cameras on, and she put them into her, tell us what you did, I guess, Selena, go ahead and unmute. And then she'll announce the winner.
So it's just a spinner wheel that you can do for free online. So I just put everybody's names in. You actually got your name put in for each day that you had your camera on, that we were able to keep track of. And so then, yeah, so you had more opportunities to have your name picked. So the winners that we have are Jeremy Sweeten.
Are you still on? Look, we better do it one by one because they also have to be present to win. Otherwise, we're gonna have to put them in that spinner. I don't know if that's possible. Okay, Jeremy, are you present? Uh-oh. I'm looking through. I'm gonna search for his name. He might have had to jump off, Selena. So let's go to your next one.
Greg Christensen.
All right, Greg, are you here? Well, okay.
We're not batting very well.
I guess maybe we were, or maybe they weren't supposed to work with you there, Steve, but okay, who was the next one?
Wendell. It just had Wendell. I didn't see the last name.
Okay, Wendell Kruger. Are you still on? I know I reached out to him. Okay, Wendell, how would you like to work with Steve Campbell?
That would be excellent.
All right.
Great.
Now, so I guess Steve, just clarify what it is that they will get as this kind of this grand prize working with you. And then Selena, if you can spin her again.
Okay, so what I intend to do is get the contact information of the 3 winners, send a thumb drive that's got a couple gigabytes of information on it. It's what I typically tend to give to people that come to a school or when I go to a farm ranch visit, and give you a week or so to look through it, and then we can have a phone conversation about anything that might be on that, or whatever else that comes up that I might be able to help you with on your farm or ranch, genetically or epigenetically.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so Steve, do you want to make note of Wendell Kruger?
I wrote a name. I'll need somebody to send me info somehow. Yeah.
I'm making note of it also, so.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Wendell. Appreciate you. And it's Kruger. Okay, so we will make sure you are connected. All right, Selena, we're able to get your, I think you're muted. Just a minute.
Ron Tiger.
Okay. Ron Taggart. Where in the world are you from, Ron Taggart? And are you still on here?
What, am I unmuted?
Yeah, you can talk.
Yeah.
Oh, my daughter tells me I'm unmuted. I'm from Cokeville, Wyoming. I know Steve. We've worked with him a little bit. And Steve, you talked about that thumb drive. I got one from you a couple of years ago, but in the last 6 months, I've lost it somehow. I've been looking, cannot find it. So.
All right.
Well, you've got another one. That's some pretty valuable information there.
Yeah, I think Steve's a real treasure. His knowledge is incredible.
Ron Taggart. Are you related to Steve Taggart, Ron Taggart?
Steve and I are cousins. Yeah.
You admit it.
He's
He used to live in Ruby Valley. Well, you know that. We were neighbors for a while.
Yeah. He was neighbors with a lot of people in Nevada. He's been up in Idaho for 15, 20 years now.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you, Ron. Appreciate that. Okay, Selena, who's our next one? Our final winner?
Preston Roth.
Okay.
Preston Roth.
Preston, are you present?
Yep, I'm still present.
Hey, right on. Are you a cattle producer? Or are you raising goats or chickens or rat? What do you think Steve Campbell would be able to provide some value to you?
He would. I've been to one of his meetings and yeah, we have cattle, so.
Okay. Well, perfect. Again, there are no accidents. Things happen for a reason. So congratulations. So let's just make sure we've got your name, and that's how you registered, was under Preston.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And where are you at in the world?
Southeast Iowa.
Okay. All right.
Jared, why don't you draw another one?
Okay, Selena, are you game for another one? You still got your spinner working? Again, this is just completely random. I don't know how the thing works, but that's how we do our grass-fed beef for a month drawings and stuff. So
Jack Stahl.
one more
Jack
time.
Stahl.
Jack Stahl, are you present? I'll just type in the chat and see if Jack Stahl, looks like you're here. Can you unmute?
I'm here, Steve. I'm here.
Oh, perfect.
Jared.
All right.
Jared, before I go further, that's probably the best 3 days I've spent in the last 10 years.
Oh, nice.
Well, thank you so much.
You know, we're about as far from your place as can get, though. We're way up in northern Alberta.
Well, how's the weather up there?
Right now it is minus 20 degrees below freezing.
Wow. I think I'll stay
it-
here. We're 30
No,
above,
it's-
so that
It's warmer than it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we had about minus 40 below for a week.
well, congratulations, Mr. Stahl. We got your name down. We'll connect you with Steve Campbell and
That'd be Steve's already here on our ranch there. So we're trying to raise a, we're trying to, when I grow up, I want to be a Steve Campbell.
Me too. That's a good aspiration. Very
Hey,
good.
Jared, the last 3 days absolutely amazing. It just blew my mind, the quality of the summit you put together. You know, I'm so grateful to be able to tune into it.
Well, you know what, Jack, that's recorded. Could I use that as we continue to help others use that testimonial?
Absolutely.
Thank you for that. And anybody else, I would welcome your feedback. Even if you say that stinks and man, why did I waste my time? Really, I wish I had a questionnaire for you to fill out, but at the bottom of the emails, I put my personal email because if you just hit respond, it's not tied back from the way that we're promoting it. So just my personal email or the text, a testimonial, that would go a long ways at being able to help increase our reach of the number of people that we can get to subsequent summits, other events that we're offering, things that we're doing. And we're gonna, you know, it's for sale for $47. You guys get it for $27. The rest of the public that didn't sign up will be $97. Because I want them to have enough buy-in that they actually do something with the information, right? You guys have spent over 10 hours of time with us here. And I just, I don't know, I wish William were here live with you so he could give you all a big hug. But since he's not, just give yourselves a round of applause because that is pretty awesome that you spent that time. You've done a great job. You've stuck it out. So for those who've stuck it out to the end, we're going to offer a little bonus here. We're just going to randomly pick some people. This is going to be kind of more of a hot seat. Alan Crockett is on, Steve Campbell is on, I'm on. If you have a question that's specific for one of us, you can ask that question. If you have more of a general question, we'll fight over who gets to answer it. So Alan, William, Steve, and myself, and maybe somebody else in this audience knows the answer to the question that you have or the challenge that you're facing. So the way this works is it's just
I can take questions too about the marketing, the direct marketing, and share what we know anyway.
okay. Yeah, on behalf of Cam King and Jarrett, who presented, is pretty well versed in that. Thank you for offering that. So is there anybody who has something that they would like some help with? I mean, we can, the idea of this is we can go as deep as you want to. And we'll encourage you to, you don't have to divulge any information that you're uncomfortable sharing, but sometimes we have to push through that and, share enough so that we can understand the big picture. And we can go for half an hour, 45 minutes. I think everybody's committed at least until 1 o'clock. William and I think Steve and I can stay till maybe 1:30 Pacific time. So, and again, if you need to jump off, you're completely excused at this point. This is voluntary. Thank you to everybody for jumping on. Continue to look for emails. If this is just not your gig, you can always unsubscribe. I won't be offended, but we're going to continue to send out information about what we do, both as the Ag Steward group and my goal, and something that I forgot to do, and that's okay. One of the things, let's just do it here with the people that are still on, because you guys are committed to the end. And again, this isn't a have to, but this is something that I invite you to do. If you are in production agriculture, if you're managing land, if it's just a backyard or it's 25,000 acres, would you be willing to put down how many acres you currently manage? Just type it in the chat And then I'm gonna make note of that. And I just want to see just randomly of these 46 participants here, how many acres are represented? That's some. And the reason that I'm doing this is one of my goals is to regenerate 2 million acres. And I know I can't do that alone. But through this summit, I wonder how many acres we reached. And just look through those numbers. I mean, again, it doesn't matter. This isn't a judgment because somebody manages more acres than you do. It's just a way to be able to see how many acres have we influenced here today. More importantly, how many lives have we influenced here today? Okay, so it looks like one for William, and then I'm going to back up. Those of you, please continue to jump on that. I'm going to make note here in a minute when William dives in. Okay, we're on non-developed land, 329 acres on a hill. You can probably read it, William. Very little soil. We want to use horses to graze. I'm reading this for the recording. To graze intensely and cover crops. Is there any dangers in doing so considering soil erosion?
Okay, I'm just reading it to get in my head what you're saying for sure. So give me a second. Okay, the key is the management of how you're grazing it, okay? You say non-development land. What state are you in? I'm wondering what your brittleness scale is. Your brittleness scale is the key to this whole thing. So are you in the eastern United States, the West? If
I think we are in a rather non-brittle environment. We're in southwestern Oregon.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, southwestern, so you're on the coast. So that you're approaching, or did you say western? So that's away from the coast. So that's more brittle than on the coast.
Yeah.
So what the brittleness scale is, that's how much humidity you have to decompose the standing grass that's left over. Okay. But this is like a 10-hour class to really explain that. But just be careful that you're not overgrazing. You don't want to overgraze, but just as dangerous is undergrazing. So you need to be moving those animals across that land in such a way that they are eating the grass and all the other forage. They're depositing manure, but you're moving them quick enough that you're not hurting any of the plants. You don't want the plants to get hurt by that overgrazing. The next thing is the undergrazing. You don't want to be gone so long and rest the ground so long, like 5 years. That's probably too long to rest, because then as the plants grow up, if nothing puts that grass back onto the ground, like a hoof, like you need to be tromping it down. If it's not getting put back down, then it decomposes chemically instead of biologically. And then that can kill out the, well, it doesn't fix your mineral cycle. But then if you have clumps of grass that just sit there for 2 or 3 years and the new growth can't grow back up through it, then the grass can die out. So it's a trick of watching. You got to be out there watching super close to see if you are grazing properly. So like where I'm not standing on the ground and I can't look at it, it's hard to diagnose. But just be careful, because you're in a situation where you could overgraze or you could undergraze. So I think I'll just leave it at that for today to avoid confusion. You're welcome.
Thank you, Mrs. Brown, for your question. It was a great question. Somebody asked, maybe Selena could field this one, or somebody else who's direct marketing. How do you get a hold of people that could use your all natural beef?
So how did they find the people that can use the beef? I assume
Yeah,
that's the question.
Clark, if you're still on, you can feel free to unmute. It looks like you're still here, and then maybe you could add some clarification. Are you currently direct marketing? Or are you wanting to get started into it?
Yes, we've been doing it for 6-7 years, and we just can't get the right clientele that could actually use our beef. We live about 60 miles from Kansas City.
Okay.
And so we got a good possibility there, and we do use email and whatnot, but just hit and miss, we don't sell that much.
So the biggest bang for your buck, I guess, to give you the most return, and building your email list to be able to let people know who you are and what you have to offer. And so when they're ready, they know who to buy from. So the biggest way to do that is to create partnerships. So the idea of the partnerships is you want to find somebody who already is selling to the people who would buy from you. So for example, maybe if you feel like your ideal client is somebody who likes to work out and stay healthy, then maybe a CrossFit gym or and other gyms in the area that are already have customers that are looking for health and have signed up, maybe offering a giveaway for their members at their gym, and then all they have to do is enter their email to sign up for your giveaway. And we usually do about 30 pounds of beef, and we're trying to make sure we have a couple hundred or more that sign up for that giveaway. So anyway, looking for where you think they are already spending their money, health food stores, or if you get on Facebook groups, you can look for foodie groups, or Crunchy Moms is one that I've had success with. There's usually one for each of the different areas, or even just mom groups, or people wanting to cook with whole foods or things like that. And so you find out where they already are, and then I talk to the admin people, or email back and forth, or call preferably, and say, hey, we're doing this giveaway and think that your clients or your members or your customers might be interested in this. Would you want to share this giveaway with them? Or can we put a flyer at your store? Or do you want to send out an email, or can I post in your group, or things like that? That's usually the most successful way. The other step would be to do Facebook ads, and that takes some learning to know how to target those and so forth.
Thank you very much.
Yep. And yeah, again, the grass-fed marketing secrets, they can help out a bunch with that, but it's a process, and I think persistence is good. But there's definitely some things that you can tap into that will dramatically improve your efforts. So just scrolling through, Selena's totaling up how many acres we're talking about here, and I'm just going to scroll down to the next question and see. Let's see, we used ultra high stock UHDG. Is that ultra high stock density? As many cattle as possible in a minimum time in a minimum area. Okay, that's probably an answer to another question. Can you grass finish cattle on dry land? Alan or Steve probably would be good ones to answer that.
I'll take a stab at it. We're kind of back to what William was talking about with the quality of the forage. The upper Midwest native grasses would be easier to finish cattle on dry land than on something that had been farmed, because there's more minerals left in that native grass. Your finishing seasons are going to be in the spring and in the fall. Unless you do some kind of baleage or something, it's hard to put on gain fast enough in the dry times of the year to have a tender. It can be flavorful year round, but it's hard to have it tender if they're not gaining fast. Cattle on the gain, well, you'll have a better eating experience, and it's hard to have cattle on the gain 12 months a year on dry land. Alan Crockett, do you have a different thought? Unmute. Okay.
You know, Steve, I would say just exactly what you said. Is it possible to do that? Yes, it is. Is it easy? No, it's not. And really, one of the things that I haven't heard spoke about here, and I missed part of yesterday afternoon, or yet the second half of yesterday because my internet quit. But part of that is, you know, Steve, the epigenetics of the cattle and what the cattle are really capable of doing, and do they fit that environment, and will they perform in that environment?
Alan, what you just said there, Fred Provenza, nourishment.
Yes.
An animal in utero is programmed to do the very best on what mom was eating while they're in utero. Unless you take an animal to a higher plane of nutrition, they're not going to perform as well. So if you've got good cattle, that clean, mineral-rich interuterine environment on your dry ground, it's going to be easier to finish them than if you're bringing in outside cattle and trying to do it in a foreign environment that is of lower energy than where they were born.
Very well said.
There you go. Got to remember to unmute. Another question for William: should cardboard be put in the winter, or put on now in the winter? That's Clark. And Clark, remind us again where you're at. Do you have covered in snow?
So it all goes back to context. It just depends what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish. You can put cardboard down any day of the year. It doesn't matter. You know, of course, you got to remember cardboard is for a small vegetable context. I don't know that you're going to get your 300 horsepower tractor out there and cover 1,000 acres of cardboard. That doesn't even exist. But yeah, you can do it anytime. It's not going to be a bad thing to do it now. I mean, if you want to get your garden going, great, go for it.
Okay, we've got some rye planted right now as a cover crop, so I just didn't know if it should be covered or what.
No, let that rye grow. So where are you?
Southeast Kansas.
Yeah, what are you gonna grow? What are you growing on it?
Just average variety of crops, you know, peas, potatoes, tomatoes.
So just a garden, right?
Just a garden, just a garden.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Take that rye and let it grow for as long as it will. So go down out there with your big sheets of cardboard and push that rye down about 2 days before you're gonna plant. So if you're planting potatoes early, then you know you may plant potatoes 6-8 weeks before you're planting your tomatoes.
Right.
So push down that rye, put your cardboard on there, get your foot of compost on that, cover it good, put your potatoes down in there, they start growing, but keep growing your rye because that's going to give you more nutrition. You're collecting more sunlight.
Right.
And then when your tomatoes are ready to go out, then do that part of the garden.
Okay, great, perfect. And while I'm unmuted here, I do have a question for Steve Campbell, I believe. I went out to look at my cows yesterday when we got done, and just about every one of them do not have a bald bag. They all have hair on them. I hope you tell me that is normal in the winter.
did I hear southeast Kansas? Is that where
Yes,
you're at?
Yes, yes.
For your environment, that's less butterfat than bald udder. A bull with a bald scrotum, a bull with a lot of vertical folds, and to a lesser extent, the smaller bones. But a bull with a bald scrotum and a lot of vertical folds would put more butterfat into the daughters of the cows you currently own.
Wow, so is that a big enough sign that they practically all have hairy udders to think about getting rid of them?
Clark, for years and years and years, we've bred for the feedlot, taller, longer, and lean. Well, if we breed for lean, we breed the butterfat out of them. We breed the easy keeping out of them. And I don't know where your cow herd came from, but if you want easy keeping cows going forward, try to find a bull that has the most of the butterfat indicators and just breed that part. I mean, if that is your biggest problem, if you didn't have any anti-fertility bones sticking up, you just had hair on the udders, find a bull with vertical folds from his neck to the back of the ribs, and the daughters of the cows you own will have more butterfat than the cows they came out of.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, I've used feral bulls for about 12 years now, and I thought they were good bulls, but apparently some of the characteristics weren't there that I should have been looking for.
More vertical folds.
More vertical folds. I got you. Loud and clear.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the question, Clark. Appreciate you participating and staying to the end. TJ, do you want to jump off mute and ask your question? And while he's saying that, did you guys see in the chat 756,070 acres represented here at the end of this? I would say we were well over 1 million acres. And again, why do I care about that? If we're going to tip the scale, turn the tide of desertification, it's going to take large scale producers, backyard gardeners, as well intentioned and as much passion as they have in it, aren't going to be able to do it. It's going to take this type of groups of people. Go ahead, TJ.
So Steve, I think that question's pretty well what I'm asking. I mean, I was looking at my calves in the feedlot thinking, man, I can't, maybe it's just winter and I can't see a whirl on all their faces. So do they all have a whirl? And if they do not, what does that mean?
Not all of them have a whirl, and it's kind of a non-event. The biggest thing is, well, Temple Grandin did the how excitable they were by how either above the whirl above the eyes was more excitable and down low less excitable. But if you have that more compact cow, that is nowhere near as knowable. It doesn't matter near as much. If you stretch the broccoli rubber band out, if you put them in stress, that is a good indicator. The not having a whirl, having a whirl, that's all good. You want the 360-degree whirl. The one that's the problem is the one that's a scar. You might have something comes down and the hair goes off to one side of the cow, but you can't see the hide in that part. It's not a big deal. It's the ones where you can see the hide at the bottom of the part. That's the one that's saying something. Lack of minerals, too many toxins. It was that time in Texas when all the windmills froze. It was just at the wrong time of gestation. And there was a problem in development. Well, there's a problem in the development of testes and ovaries at the same time. There's a problem in the development of that pineal whorl on the face. Okay.
And there's another one for you. Is that you, Kaylee, that asked it? Do you want to jump on and so I'll read the question, and then if you're there, maybe you can jump on. It just helps the conversation if it's more talking to somebody than to the atmosphere here. Can Steve say again what he was saying in his presentation about a good bull and the influence he has on his calf crop versus maybe the influence of the cows? I just got lost and don't feel like I got it all. Don't worry about it. There was a lot of information there, but that makes me think, like, am I right? I think this ties in. I don't think this is a tangent, but am I right in what Gerald taught, that the cow has like veto rights on certain genes, and I don't know how else to say this. Like, you can put a mediocre bull on a really good cow and you can get a good